And it's the live stream, everybody. Hi, welcome to the pre-show for our 221,001 Core 1 A Plus study group. I need to get my chat popped out here. Now it's on the wrong side. I have no idea what that just told me. Something important about pin chats. But we missed it, so we'll have to find that later. Hey, everybody. Hey, chat room. Thanks for joining us. We'll be starting here in about 10 minutes. The actual live stream will be in the front. You don't have to worry. You're not going to see me from behind the whole time. Is this working? All of the video inputs are working. All right. Very nice. Hi, chat room. Hi. Thanks for being here. We've got all A+, Core 1 A+ Q&A today. It's all brand new. It's brand new every month. We'll do this. Hello, Atlanta. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Capital of the South. Very nice. Justin's taking the Core 1 at 1:30 today. So we'll get you this first, hour or so. Is it worth it to have A+ if you already have Google IT support cert? I don't know. Are employers asking you to have A+? That would be a good reason. I think. Hello from your hometown. Okay. Where is my hometown? It would be remarkable were you in my hometown, given that there are not very many people that live in my hometown. I live, or I grew up in a part of Florida, a county in Florida that to this day, I want to say does not have a red, yellow, green traffic light. I think that's still true. So it's a pretty rural area of Florida. But I think that just goes to show you. I did a lot of summers working in the field, literally working in the field, because there were a lot of fields where I am from. So I did a lot out on the farms. Eustis. Close. I think they actually have a red, yellow, green in that county. So I don't think there's another. I think there were two Florida counties I think did not have a red, yellow, green. I think we're down to the last one. So we'll figure it out. But thank you for being here. Hello, Dallas and Ohio. Hey, San Jose, welcome. Houston, Texas is here. Minneapolis. North Central Florida. That does sound like North Central Florida. That is spot on where in Florida that is. Not many other places in Florida it could be, I don't think. I think that's about it. Zimbabwe is here. North New Jersey is here. Austin, Texas is here. Northern California. Milwaukee, welcome. There's always something, though. There's Canada. Hey, Toronto. Thank you for being here. I will inform Mrs. Professor Messer that Canada has checked in. Hello, UK. Washington, San Antonio, Savannah. It's beautiful there. For those of you that haven't been to Savannah, it's amazing. It's a fantastic place. Hungary, welcome. SoCal, that would be the southern part of California. See how I deciphered that? St. Vincent, welcome. Los Angeles is here. Tampa. There's some more Florida folks checking in. South Carolina, Orange County, California, which is different than Orange County, Florida. Only slightly, right? Is it Kurdistan? Good. It should be. Zambia, Virginia, Indiana. Occasionally we get the North Korea checks in. Not today. Maybe next time. I guess it depends on what's going on there. Hello, Galway, Ireland. Welcome. Austin. Lakeland. That's nice. See, we got Florida checking in. Hello, India, and Indiana, and Virginia. So we've got Core 1. We start in about 5 minutes. We're 5 minutes from being there. Antarctica, welcome. I'm assuming you're there dealing with whatever's going on with the gate. So keep everything in line, will you? Did they move that gate, though? I thought they moved that gate. I thought they moved it from Antarctica. Did they need it to replace one, or did we use the Russian gate to replace the one that was destroyed? Hard for me to remember. I'm going to have to watch all the episodes again to bring it all back. Now it's getting warm. 5-minute warning, everybody. There it is. Very nice. Hello, Cameroon. Oh, you're from Cameroon, living in China. Of course you are. That sounds exotic. Liverpool is here. Phoenix, San Francisco Bay Area. That's a big area. That could be a lot of places along there. We've got Germany, New Jersey again, Nebraska, Texas, North Carolina, more Canada. Welcome. We got kinfolk in Canada, so that's how it works. Let's make it cooler in here though, because it's going to get warm with these lights. Hello, Fort Lauderdale. How long is the study group? Well, the first hour will be Q&A, where I ask you questions and you answer. And then we just sort of keep it running afterwards in the after show for about an hour, sometimes hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours if I can stand it. So that's your time frames. We just do it until there's no more things to do. We're just keep it going. Now, it might be a little different today and tomorrow because we're doing the one today, and then I'm doing one tomorrow, which is unusual. It's rare for that to happen. But just my schedule is such that this week that I wanted to do 2 of those. I want to do the Core 1 and Core 2, but I can really only fit them in today and tomorrow. So that's what we're doing tomorrow is Core 2. Hello, Pembroke Pines, Pines Boulevard. Used to live in Pembroke Pines. Used to live in Pembroke Pines, and I used to live in Miramar. Both of them at Silver Lakes. Because Silver Lakes straddles those city limits. Have I heard of RTP? Yeah, of course. Of course I have. A lot of, used to visit customers all the time in RTP. Obviously, enormous IBM there. We've got a lot of, the banks have a lot of IT stuff up in that area. So there's a lot happening in RTP. There always has been. Cisco's got all that technology there and people. There's all kinds of things going on there. I'm assuming they still got that Cisco facility there. I thought they were doing a lot there. I know they were sort of changing around where the training or the certification parts were. I don't know if they moved that out of there or not. I can't remember. That's how much I don't remember. I don't remember what they did. They did something and it did a thing and then it was changed. There we go. Glad I was able to provide that insight. We will figure it out. To a minute and a half to go. Where we go. We will get there. We'll have to get a lot of things. Hello, Virginia Beach. Welcome. We've got, would general manager experience help in landing a job in IT? Well, I think anything helps. The ability to talk to people is perhaps in many ways underappreciated in our training materials because it's incredibly important. Being able to, you could explain to someone else a configuration, a problem that you're solving, but explain it in a way that really any adult would be able to understand. It's fantastic. If you can get up in front of people and explain it in a way that everyone can understand. And many times you often become a translator. Let me translate from the technical thing to what we're doing in a way that makes sense. If you can do that, there are tons of jobs out there in IT for you. It's remarkable. Okay. We are just about 30 seconds away from doing a thing, everybody. We've already got one of the questions up. Let's get this. Actually, I'll just start it here. Let's bring up our keynote. That's not keynote. That's keynote. Let's bring up the keynote. Let's get a green light. Hopefully get a green light. There it is. Hey, look at that. It all works, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. Given all of that, I think it is time to get started. Top of the hour, everybody, and time for a study group. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 220-1001 Core 1 A+ study group from your friends here at ProfessorMesser.com. My name is James Messer. I will be your host for this hour of Q&A. I will ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and then you online through the magic of the internet, those of you who are here live, can answer the question live. We'll talk more about that and how you can participate. In fact, we'll do that right now if I can get all the buttons pushed that I need to have pushed. The way you can participate today is pop open a new browser window and simply sit on this screen, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. There's a question waiting for you. You just have to browse to that particular URL, or it's one of those situations where you can either use your browser or you can download the app. There is, of course, an app. It is called the Socrative Student app. That is what it is. That is one of those situations where you get to choose which one you would like to use. If you use the app, though, it will ask you for a room name. Make sure your room name, Professor Messer, all one word, ProfessorMesser. There you go. That is one of those situations where you should be able to find your way online to get to this question. And if you do everything right, you will see a question that asks, a company is using pre-built modules on a cloud service provider to create a custom inventory application. Which of the following would best describe this implementation? Would it be IaaS, peer-to-peer, SaaS, hybrid, or PaaS? It's got to be one of those five. If you think you know the answer, lock that answer in. I would love to tell you the answer, and we'll tell you in just a moment. Please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We will come back to that question shortly. I'll have this. That's your link right there, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. That's where you want to go to be able to answer that question. All available online. We will come back to this question just a bit. If that sounds familiar, this question is from last month. This is always the first question of every study group is a rewind question from last month, just to see if you can get in to answer those questions and do the things that are required to be able to follow along interactively. If you are not here live, if you're watching this on a replay, that feature will obviously not be available, but you can still follow along with us. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We were chatting with the study group as we were coming in. Everybody who's in the chat room, welcome. Thank you for being here. Of course, throughout the month, we have all kinds of daily pop quiz questions. We have videos that are released. There's all kinds of things going on. Make sure that if you are watching this, that you subscribe right now to our YouTube channel or visit ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. At the very least, we'd love a thumbs up from you. There's also daily pop quiz questions posted to the Twitter, and the same question with a pretty picture is posted to the Instagram. So you've got places to go to start gathering more intel. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can always be studying. Always be studying. I saw that movie. I don't think that's what it was. If you are watching this, you already have a certification. You're watching this for continuing education unit credit. Just think about and follow along to what we're doing here in this first hour. Listen in. And somewhere in this first hour, I will give you instructions on how you can receive an email from me that certifies that you must have attended this for a webinar category CEU. This is Attend a Live Webinar. Those of you, I had somebody email me this past week and said, I sent this to CompTIA, and they said, study groups aren't CEUs. I said, but this is not a study group. This is a live webinar, and that is good for a CEU. So they got that straightened out. That is what you want to listen in for. Sometime in this first hour, I'll give you instructions on how to do that. So listen in. We'll get to that point. The 220-1001 and the 220-1002, the two exams, we'll do the 1001 today in this study group. Tomorrow, a day later, we're doing the 1002 study group. So come back tomorrow. Put that on your calendar right now. This is an exam that was released in January of 2019, which means that the estimated retirement for this would be somewhere around July of 2022. Of course, when this came out, the world was a bit of a different place from a scheduling perspective. Things have shifted a bit, as if you could say that, over the last year and a half. So it could be, and I suspect, that we will be pushing that out just a little bit, but we don't know yet. There's been no official announcement, but I think even now as we sit here in August at the very beginning, you've got a year to be able to study for this exam. This is the one you should be studying for. Make sure you focus on that. There are 2 exams you have to pass, the 1001 and 1002, to be A+ certified. You have to score a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900 to get your 1001 certification done. That Core 1 is what we call that. If you are studying from older materials, you'll notice, if you compare them to the exam objectives, that quite a bit has changed between those versions. So even though we're kind of coming into the last year of this particular test version, there's still quite a bit that is different, and enough that you should make sure that all of your study materials specifically say 221,001 and 221,002. If it's not one of those two, you should throw it out. If it's the 901, 902, throw it out. If it's the 801, 802, throw it out. That's a recycle bin. That's a delete the digital version of it. You don't need it anymore. It's not going to apply for what you're doing. So that's where you want to focus. Now, if you're wondering what is on the exam, what are they going to ask me? They have a big list. So make sure you download the list. It's free. Go to professormesser.com/objectives. I have a link there to the CompTIA website, or simply type into the Google machine, CompTIA Exam Objectives. It will take you right there. Make sure you download it. If you do look through those objectives, you'll notice that on the Core 1, we have mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware and network troubleshooting. So there is quite a bit that we're going to go through today across all of those different topics. Tomorrow, we'll talk about operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. But today, we're just focusing on the Core 1. So if you know about the Core 1, you're good to go. A lot of you know that you're able to watch every single one of my videos online for free, all whenever you'd like. Every minute of every bit of training videos out there for you to watch. I don't keep anything behind a paywall. I don't put sample versions on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube. You don't need to register. You don't need to give me an email address or a credit card number or any ridiculous things like that. Just go out and watch them. They're there and available for you. Some people would like an offline version of those videos. They would like MP3 audio versions. They would like my course notes or my practice exams or my exam hacks ebook. So I bundled everything that I make together into a single package. It's my success bundle. And if you'd like to have a look at that and see what's available, you'll find it at professormesser.com/1001success. I've also got Q&A questions that effectively are archives of our study group questions out on my Take 10 challenge. You go to professormesser.com/take10, and you can go through all of those free questions to help prepare you for your A+ certification. There's also an audio version of this available in podcast form. So if you have a podcast listening program, you can add us to that by visiting professormesser.com/podcast, or you can simply play the podcast version from that page. Whatever you'd like to do with that. It's all available. I just want to be sure that you have access to the content. And the podcasts can be easily downloaded to your mobile device, so they are always there just by using your podcast app. We, of course, if you have a look at YouTube, one of the things you'll notice is the YouTube video descriptions have timestamps in them. These are not done magically. Well, they sort of are, from my perspective, because Lori, my marketing manager, is the one that creates them. So to me, it's all done magically. She's the one doing the hard work. Lori's watching the replay right now, so everybody say hi to Lori. She watches the live chat go by as well. So this is one where if you're trying to find a particular question or answer, or trying to find a phone call that you remember, she indexes everything, and they're right there in that YouTube video description. Don't forget about my course notes. They're available also on my website. Might save you some time because there are 137 A+ videos, 18 hours, 29 minutes, and that's as efficient as I could make them. There's still a lot of content. So I have put everything into a set of course notes that can really help you keep track of all of this. So this is a great way to sort of summarize everything that you're doing. In fact, here's my course notes. There they are. So I'll just go through a few pages of this and give you a feel for it. You've got all of the text, all of the charts, all of the pictures that are important. They're all in there in these course notes. Something that might help you. You can find out about those at professormesser.com/1001notes. And very quickly, I'll remind you that if you're planning to take your A+ certification, do not pay full price for your voucher. I have discounted vouchers on my site that you don't need any special codes. There's no coupons you have to fight over. There's nothing you have to hunt for. They're just naturally discounted. So it makes it so simple when you're ready to get your exam vouchers. Also, since you are coming to my site and getting the exam vouchers, why not include a free book with this? So if you buy the voucher from professormesser.com/vouchers, you get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook, which I think might give you a couple of points on your exam. Certainly has the potential for improving your score. So please have a look at that. So make sure that you go through and see if you can get a better feel for where you want to take this exam, whether it's online or at a testing center. Regardless, you're going to need a voucher, and we've got them available for you at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's look at that question we had earlier. A company is using pre-built modules on a cloud service provider to create custom inventory applications, or a custom inventory application. Which of the following would best describe this implementation? Is it IaaS, peer-to-peer, SaaS, hybrid, or PaaS? What'd you guys answer? 52% of you said platform as a service. We've got 26% of you that said software as a service, and 16% of you said infrastructure as a service. There's also 5% that said hybrid and 1% that said peer-to-peer. If we go with the majority, platform as a service, I think some of you may have remembered this one. The key here is that they are pre-built modules, and you can build your own applications like they're a bunch of Legos. You just put the Lego blocks together and build your application based on the tools that they provide you with on their platform. So platform as a service is great because I don't have to have my own equipment and my own set up in my data center and a whole programming backend. I can simply use platform as a service and be able to build all of my applications based on the building blocks that they give me. This is an exceptional, easy to use. I've used many platform as a service tools. In fact, I've been using one this past week that is an automation tool where they have all of the blocks I need to create a lot of automated processes I use in the back end of my services and my company. So when you get a voucher from me, there's a lot of automatic processes I did from behind the scenes to make sure that I can match you with an available voucher, that I can get that voucher emailed to you safely. And it all works because I use a platform as a service that allows me to customize what that flow would be. Incredibly useful. Platform as a service is the right answer in this particular case. It would not be software as a service because there is no software. The company has pre-built modules and they're having to create a custom application themselves. There is nothing software-wise available for you to use yet. So it would not be software as a service. If this particular provider had a fully built out, completely created inventory management system, then it would be software as a service. But they don't. They just have the Legos. They gave me a box full of Legos and said, there you go. They shook them. Here you go. Don't drop them on the floor. It'll hurt when you step on them. Go make something. And so that's one of those situations where this can be really, really useful if you're trying to build your own app. But if you'd like to use somebody else's app that they've already built, that's software as a service. And lastly, infrastructure as a service is not the right answer either. 15% of you said that one. Infrastructure as a service, you can think of it as hardware as a service. They give you the everything that you need to get a basic machine running. So they give you network, they give you storage, CPU, they give you some memory, and in some cases even give you an operating system, but that's it. That's the only thing that you get. That would be infrastructure as a service. Peer-to-peer is a way of communicating across the network to other devices. That doesn't describe this implementation. And a hybrid implementation would be kind of a mix between public and private, and that's not what we were doing here either. The only answer here, not just the best, but the only one that really makes sense, is indeed platform as a service, and 57% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Nice. So that means that you have gotten through Our first rewind question, all of the questions now in the rest of the study group are brand new. You've never seen them before because I just wrote them a couple days ago and added them online. One of the first things that we do with our new questions, though, is to give you a feel of the type of questions that you might get at the very beginning of your A+ exam. For those of you that have never taken one of these exams before, this is pretty important. The first handful of questions you get on the exam are what CompTIA calls performance-based questions. They are questions that are not multiple choice. This one was multiple choice. You could choose between these multiple possible answers. But CompTIA knows that it's too easy to memorize multiple choice. Let's make you perform a function. It's a physical challenge. Not quite that bad. But they do require you to do anything but multiple choice. Fill in the blank, matching, drag and drop, selecting from a pull-down menu, performing a function on a Windows screen, whatever it happens to be. It's just anything but multiple choice. So I have for you a fill-in-the-blank question. They technically don't have fill-in-the-blank on the exam, thankfully. But I think it's a little harder if you get a fill-in-the-blank question, and then you'll be ready for the exam. So here's our performance-based question of the month. And for those of you on the podcast, I apologize. It is a visual question. So you're going to see a bunch of ports on the screen. And the question asks, identify the interface and its use. So kind of a two-part question. First, identify the interface, then identify what it does. I'm not looking for a lot of detail here. Just tell me what do you use this for? That kind of thing. So we have port 1, port 2, port 3, port 4, and port 5. Port's 5, I guess. There's more than one there. They're all pretty much the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a remarkable motherboard that we have here. If you know the answer, please do not answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, follow that link that's at the bottom of your screen, professormesser.com/QA. And let's see how well you recall all of these answers. The answer there at professormesser.com/QA. I'm starting to see the answers come through finally. So see what you have there. So it's remarkable, these particular answers or the particular ports on this motherboard. So let's see how you did. Yeah, port 2, I would say for chat room, port 2, that's kind of a tough one. Kind of a tough one there. Port 5 could be confusing, I think, if you haven't seen it before. Port 1, I think most people will get. Port 3 is very unique, so that's maybe one that people can see. And if you want for extra bonus, there's a couple of extra 3 ports on here. You could even say, if you happen to know what they are. We'll go through those in just a bit. We'll have to see if you know what those happen to be. This is a common type of question for the exam because we want you to be able to see these interfaces and instantly know what they are. This is one of those situations where people sometimes say, well, I'll just Google it. This whole exam is something I could Google. Well, technically, I think everything in your life is something you could Google. But when you're in a meeting or you're troubleshooting a problem and you run across this motherboard on the back, you can't tell the people while you're troubleshooting, hold on a second, I need to go Google what all these interfaces are. Wait, we hired you because we need you to fix these things quickly, not be Googling all of the ports. So there is a reason that is important to be able to identify these types of interfaces. Hopefully these are interfaces that you can recognize as well. Pretty good. Some of you are actually giving some ideas about what some of these other ports might be as well. So this is a good one. So it would be good. This would be excellent. It is, yeah, you do not want to Google every step of every problem. That would be the worst troubleshooting ever, is to do something like that. Let's not do that. Let's do something else. So we're getting some very good answers here. I'm thinking a lot of you got I think maybe 100% of you got number 1. I think number 2, the second port, is a tough one. That's certainly a challenge. The other ones that we look at on here, port number 3, a lot of people getting port 3 without a problem, although there is a little bit of a mix up there than 5. We'll have to see. Have to see how this works out. As always, of course, please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. Let's see how you did with this one. Let's step through each one of these interfaces and really break them down. We'll start with our first interface. This is one I think 100% of you got absolutely right. It is so common. We see it on all of our consumer electronics these days. It's an HDMI interface, primarily used for video. HDMI is kind of such a common interface that we don't even think about it anymore. Of course, that is an HDMI interface. Port 2 was a tough one. It has an unusual type of interface in that it's not symmetric. See, it's got this little flat lip on the bottom side, and the interface inside kind of makes a U. It's kind of, or an upside down U, if you want to see it from that perspective. So for those of you that got this one right, you were spot on. DisplayPort. That is a video connection as well. I guess technically HDMI could be video and audio. It does certainly support transferring audio over that. So yeah, I would accept that as video and audio. On this particular system, they're not using it for audio. I don't know. I'm making it up at this point. You're absolutely correct. That could be audio. How about DisplayPort? Could that be video and audio? That's a good one to think about. DisplayPort is... DisplayPort's a tough one. As always, DisplayPort connections go in very easily, but often have a lock on them. And you'll notice they won't pull out very easily. So don't ever try to yank a DisplayPort out of its interface. That is not what you want to do. There's always, almost always, a catch, a lock, something you push on the cable to unlock it to allow it to come out of that interface, which is one of the reasons DisplayPort a little bit better than HDMI because of that. Actually, there's a lot of good reasons HDMI is better. So you have to be able to push down to unplug it, which means it doesn't come unplugged on accidentally, because HDMI sure comes unplugged accidentally. So that's one of those. And DisplayPort does carry audio as well, doesn't it? Because it's all digital. Why not throw some of the audio on there as well for these? Port 3, which is, why does this particular motherboard have all of these video ports on it? I don't know, but it's another video port. There's a DVI video port on here. Why is there and not only that, but I know this wasn't on the list, but just above that, this is a VGA analog video port. So you've got 4 video connectors on this one motherboard, all of them different. You've got plenty of options for video. Whatever monitor you've got, we got you covered. You can plug it in to this motherboard. You're no problem. We can put this anywhere, and you'll be able to see the screen. So we got 3 video ports right off the bat for the DVI. So yeah, why didn't they color these ports? Well, they don't have to. They don't have to color ports. DVI could be colored. The VGA could be colored. All these could have colors associated with them, but this particular motherboard doesn't. Or maybe there is a cover that fits over the back of the motherboard onto the case, and that's colored. Maybe that's, but the colors are not required. So it's not one of those situations. So number 3 is indeed a video connection DVI. 4th connection up here in the upper right, that those 8 connections inside of this, those 8 position, 8 connectors should obviously tell you that that's your Ethernet connection for your network. That's where you plug in, get that network configuration. And 5th on our list is these unusual looking color, finally using colors. There's the colored interfaces. Those are audio interfaces. Those audio jacks, the tip ring sleeve, TRS, are your audio connections. So there's probably on this connection, this is probably what, a 5.1 type config. So it's got a left side, a right side, a front, a back, a subwoofer, and a microphone. Of course, you need the microphone. Yeah, I would accept RJ45 for that. It's an RJ45 connection for the Ethernet. I probably should put RJ45 because we're talking about interfaces. So I give me -1 for putting Ethernet, +1 for you for putting RJ45. That works for me. Interestingly enough, the PS2 connectors, there are PS2 connectors on this motherboard that I cut off on the left side. Can we do some editing real quick? Let's do some editing real quick, because we're just remarking at see, there they are. You don't even see them. But there's actually PS2. In fact, mixed PS2, you have the red and the purple and the green to plug in either or into that mix. So that's where that came from. So all of those are the right answers. Hopefully you recognize those interfaces. Now, we already did VGA. We know, I'm not even going to mention these blue interfaces here. It's obviously USB. Those are USB connections, which leaves us with one interface left right up here. It is an optical audio out. So if you are doing something like using that DVI, which does not support audio on it, you can plug into that audio SPDIF type connection and plug into your audio system, which of course you can't do if you got the new Xbox. I'm so sorry. No audio output on the SPDIF. Why did they do that? Why did they take the audio? Well, there it is. So those are our interfaces. Hopefully those were interfaces that you recognize. I think DisplayPort is going to be the one that I think most people got tripped on. So make sure you memorize that one, get familiar with those pieces. This is something you can do yourself, by the way. You go out to Google, you type in motherboard connections, motherboard interfaces, and you go to the image search, and you just go through all of these images and see if you can recognize them. It's a great way to do your own lab. I just gave you a lab to do. There you go. And sometimes you'll find one you don't recognize. The way that you get the answers is you download the manual of the motherboard, and they tell you in the motherboard manual what's there. So make sure you're familiar with all of those. That is our 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Hopefully you got those right. That is our performance-based question of the month. So hopefully that will help you too. Let's go now away from these performance-based questions, and let's do another multiple choice-based question. Our brand new question asks, a user is authenticating to a VPN concentrator. Which of the following ports would most likely be used? In this case, we're not talking about interfaces. We're talking about TCP and UDP ports. Is it TCP 389, TCP 548, TCP 22, TCP 3389, or UDP 161? If you think you know the answer, please do not answer in the chat room. Instead, go to this link that's on your screen at professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what this is. The question again, a user is authenticating to a VPN concentrator. Which of the following ports would most likely be used? Is it TCP 389, TCP 548, TCP 22, TCP 3389, or UDP 161? Oh, these port numbers. There's a lot that you have to memorize for the Core 1, and they are the bane of everyone's existence. Not only because you have to memorize what port number is associated with what protocol, but like this question asks, how do you use that protocol? What does that protocol do for you? How does it function? So that's really the hard part, is knowing how these work for this. And you don't see the answer on the list. Well, there is an answer, and it is on the list because the question asks, which of the following ports would most likely be used? So we do have a list of 5, and you have to choose what 5 of those it would be. Which one would it be? Which one most likely would it be? In this list of port numbers, there's really only one that it really could be. There's not, I think the most likely I put there because you could make port numbers be anything you want them to be. You could have one device where port 80 is SSH. You got to have another device where port 80 is RDP. We don't do that because that would be just, we would never be able to keep up with it. Thankfully, we don't do that. Thankfully, we have well-known port numbers that we use. And this definitely is a well-known port number, certainly one you need to know from the CompTIA exam objectives. So let's see how you did. A user is authenticating to a VPN concentrator. Which of the following ports would most likely be used? Would it be TCP 389, TCP 548, TCP 22, TCP 3389, or UDP 161? Well, if we know what it is, let's answer. Let's see how you answered anyway. We're just not sure. We are all over the place. Could this be more flatlined than what it is there? You've got 30% that said TCP 22 and 29% that said TCP 3389. almost a tie. Then practically a tie for second between TCP 389 and TCP 548. Then 10% of you said UDP 161. So here's the key, is that we want to be able to find the right answer when given this particular scenario. We're authenticating to a VPN concentrator. So we should be able to throw some out immediately. The thing that we're looking for is some type of authentication method. What type of protocol from this list, which one of these would be associated with some authentication method? And the one that you should immediately see that's available is LDAP. LDAP is Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. That's what the LDAP stands for. And it runs over TCP 389. Right there, just immediately kind of gives you the feel for this. This is, we sort of talk very broadly about this. We call it a network directory. If you've done any work with Active Directory, then you know what LDAP is to be able to work with this. This is one of those situations, of course, where I mentioned you not only need to understand the port number, TCP 389, you have to know it's associated with LDAP, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, then you have to know what LDAP is. LDAP is one of those situations where you really do need to understand what we're accessing. So we need a directory. Everybody's network has some type of directory. I would say the vast majority of people have a directory, Active Directory. So if you ever work with Windows in a domain configuration, Active Directory, that's where that directory comes from. It's just a list of things. It's a list of all of your users. It's a list of all of the computers they use. It's a list of all the printers. And it's usually listed, it's designed in a way that has a hierarchical structure. So you're able to see things based on a group of people, based on where it may be located. It's a way just to keep track. It's just a database. It's a database you can use to keep track of everything, but it also allows you to assign rights and permissions. Since everything is in one place, why not have that as your central repository to manage everything? And there indeed is where this comes from. That is Active Directory to a T. That's how Microsoft has really held on to that enterprise market, is Active Directory is just so strong and is so powerful that nothing else ever comes close. So in this case, TCP 389 is what we were looking for. That was answer A. 16% of you got that one right. We need to work on our port numbers, obviously. I've got some ideas about that. We'll talk about that soon. If you're not on my Discord at professormesser.com/Discord, we talk all the time about other things to be able to do that. We've got other port numbers in here. Let's see if I can remember what they are. TCP 548, I believe that's Apple Filing Protocol. So if you're using a Mac OS or an Apple device and you are transferring files between devices or printing across the network using the Apple Filing Protocol, which very commonly uses TCP 548. TCP 22, okay, it's Telnet's 23. FTP is 20 and 21. 22 is right in the middle of those, and that's SSH, because SSH has the terminal capabilities of Telnet and the file transfer capabilities of FTP, putting it right in the middle. There's a reason it's right in the middle, and that's exactly why the developer of SSH said, I want 22, because it's right in the middle of these two things that this does, except it's encrypted, it's secure, so it's perfect. TCP 22, obviously not helping us for authenticating to a VPN concentrator, however. TCP 3389, 30% of you chose that one too. Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP commonly uses 3389. 3389, though, is very commonly used for screen sharing to be able to manage a device one-on-one, but it's not a VPN concentrator. A VPN concentrator would not use it for authentication. So that's not going to help me. If I'm trying to authenticate, if I need to support somebody's desktop, if I need to be able to see what they see, if I need to be able to manipulate things on their desktop with my keyboard and my mouse, that would be 3389. Now, UDP 161, the only UDP protocol here, UDP 161 is the Simple Network Management Protocol, or SNMP, which is very commonly used for managing devices, for gathering statistics and metrics from devices, but it is not used for authentication. Almost always used for management of the device behind the scenes. So that is why in this case, TCP 389 for LDAP That is the right answer here. It's the one you should have chosen. It's really the only answer here. The way this works is that you log in with your VPN concentrator. The first thing when you are trying to VPN into a system is it's not going to let you in. It's going to ask you for a username and password. Well, of course, I need my VPN username and password. Let me type that in. You type in your username and password. Well, how does it know your username and password is correct? It has to check in with the database that holds your username and password, which is the directory. And that's where LDAP comes in. Your VPN concentrator queries the directory using a very common protocol called LDAP that almost everything talks about and sends back the results of that. And if you typed your password right, it gives you access. If you typed your password wrong, it denies you access. That is how this particular question is designed to work, and why you should know how important LDAP is, because so many things use it. Make sure you know about this. You're not accessing a directory. The chat room's like, I'm accessing a directory, right? No, you're accessing a database. And in this world of databases, we're referring to this as a directory. In fact, I really wish I had my other slide up, because I used to put, maybe I still do, the phone directory. We used to have a book, I guess we still do, maybe it's all electronic now, a physical printed book that has everyone in your town's name, address, and phone number. So if you need to call someone, you go to this directory and you flip to the directory to find someone's phone number. There it is, 997, blah, 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 blah. Okay, now I can type that into my phone and I'm communicating with them. It's just a database. That's a manual database. Think of this as the phone directory for your network. LDAP is the phone directory for your network, or at least the common way to reference the phone directory for your network. Are there people that don't know what a phone book is? Brother, there are plenty. Welcome to my world. And that's why if you answered A, TCP 3D9, 18% of you got that one absolutely right. So absolutely, you did well there with all of those. Let's do another question. Now that I've talked so much on that one, this question asks, a system administrator is configuring an IoT device using a direct wireless connection to the device. Which of the following would describe this connection? Would it be 802.1x, Bonjour, Centronics, TIA 568B, or ad hoc? A system administrator is configuring an IoT device using a direct wireless connection to the device. Which of the following would describe this connection? Would it be 802.1x, Bonjour, Centronics, TIA 568B, or ad hoc? It's hard to break out of the French once you start doing that, isn't it? So those are your 5 options. If you think you know the answer, please no hints in the chat room. Please no comments in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. You can say anything else, though. You would like almost anything. You'll find out those answers, though, by visiting professormesser.com/QA. You can lock in your answer and see how it goes. Yes, the white pages were residential. The yellow pages were business. That's those. Oh, I speak French? No, do not speak French. I speak no French. I barely speak English. So that's, I know, I did say no comments in the chat room. Perhaps I overspoke. I overreached just a little bit. Bonjour, bonjour, Betifgos, bonjour, Citronics. C'est bon. This is one of those questions where you do sort of have to know what all of those 5 things are so you get rid of the ones that you think it is. So that I think would helpful. My Discord, professormesser.com/Discord. That's easy. If you ever want to find me on any social media or thing, it's professormesser.com/ the name of the thing. So professormesser.com/Discord will take you to my Discord. I also have a link of on my website of at the top right are all these little icons. And it's one of those icons that's there. So you can find the icons in that one too. So figuring out those. Yeah, me speaking any language is bad. We do not want to do that. Know your limitations, people. And I used to travel. I have done presentations in France and Paris. I've done presentations in Milan. Didn't speak Italian. I've done presentations in Germany. No German. Even though last name, nope, don't know any German. I've done presentations in Japan, in Korea, did not speak Japanese, did not speak Korean. So even though, please put the link to Discord in the YouTube chat. Nope. You're going to have to do it yourself. ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. You'll be okay. You'll figure it out. Let's see how you did with this one. A system administrator is configuring an IoT device using a direct wireless connection to the device. Which of the following would describe this connection? I said device too much in this question. You can tell I write these myself. The results show that 48% of you say it's 802.1x, and 43% of you say it's ad hoc. Now, the important part about this particular answer is 802.1x. The X doesn't mean anything. It's not a placeholder. That's a thing. 802.1 capital X is an actual thing. So some of you, I think, that were thinking, oh, that must mean 802.11. That's not what that means. 802.1x is something else. And it's not really about wireless, although sometimes we'll see it associated with wireless. But the 44% of you that said ad hoc is the answer we were looking for, because that is a way for two wireless devices to communicate directly to each other. And whenever you start working with IoT devices, it's a very common way for the IoT device to be able to first connect and then add you to the existing large wireless network that's based on your access point. So that is why that is the right answer. In fact, I did that this week. I got new lights in the studio. You probably can't even tell because the lights are pretty much they're pretty much the same they were. There's not much difference in what you see, but there's a difference in the lights that I am using. So those differences, these are IoT lights, if you will. I can go to my screen and simply pull down and turn off all the lights. There we go. No more lights. So I had to connect my control center there for these lights to be able to communicate to my larger access point network. And the way it did it is it first connected to the lights over an ad hoc connection. Over that ad hoc connection, it configured my access point settings, then disconnected from my ad hoc and connected to the wider access point. A very common process for doing IoT devices. Very, very simple. We have other options here. The 802.1x is a network access control protocol. It is one we were talking about authentication earlier. It's commonly used to do port level authentication. By port level, I mean interface level authentication to devices. So if you're plugging into a wireless network or you're trying to connect to, plugging into a Ethernet network or trying to connect to a wireless network, if you're plugging into a wireless network, call me when we need to talk. There is plenty of technology behind that, but it effectively means that you have to first authenticate before gaining access to either the wireless or wired network. We have other choices here like TIA 568B, which is a standard. It's a big standard for wiring, but the part of the standard we're most commonly associate with this value is the colors that we associate with the pins inside of our wires so that everybody uses the same wiring standard. So wiring standards, not what we were looking for. We're talking about direct wireless connections, which is ad hoc. Bonjour. Bonjour is a protocol used primarily by Apple devices, but it can be used by Windows and other devices as well to find each other on the network, sort of a discovery protocol. So it can find the printers and find the operating systems and find your network access points and find your cable boxes and find everything that you're running using a protocol that everyone can use. So it's not locked into one particular operating system. Everybody can participate and find all the devices, which are really useful. And Centronics, this is old school. That's an old parallel printer connection is what commonly is associated with Centronics, but it's a very large interface type commonly seen on cables for mostly printers. You'd see it a little bit on SCSI connections as well. So pretty useful. This is one of those I think that does help. If you're ever in a place where you're trying to figure it out, that's where it would be. So that's our answer here. Ad hoc is a very good way to kind of approach connectivity for these IoT. It works so well, And if you are in a situation where suddenly you're out in the field, you need to connect two devices together, you don't have an access point anywhere, ad hoc works really well. I'm dating myself. I think we're past that point, aren't we? As far as dating ourselves, I think we're pretty clear that that I am dated. But it helps because I keep track of the new things. We'll keep all of those there. This is this wireless piece. What you're looking for to connect ad hoc is a connection. It's even spelled out this way in your operating system for 802.11 ad hoc mode, which effectively makes your device now something that can be viewed, that ad hoc mode. So if you're someone you're sort of working towards this view of, I think mostly trying to connect devices together and have some common way to connect without an access point, this can really be a lifesaver. Make sure you're familiar with this standard. It can really, really help you out if you're working through those. So hopefully that can help you. Well done for those of you that got that one right. And the fact that I can't speak French doesn't mean that I don't like France. I don't know. I love France. Been there many times. I think it's awesome. For those of you wondering, people always wonder, why are you doing that? Why are you talking about France so much? It's the protocol, all the words. The practice exams, though, are also something you should think about. This is one of those situations where I started looking at practice exams out on the internet, and I found that there were a lot of practice exams that were really, really bad. The problem is practice exams probably one of the best things you can do to determine if you're ready to take the exam. And if you don't have a way to get that feedback, then you're never quite sure if you're ready. Have you really studied everything? Do you know it the way you should? Well, you probably should focus on learning more about these practice exams. So I wrote some. I wrote 3 complete practice exams, 90 questions in each exam, and I tried to make them something that goes beyond the scope of a traditional practice exam. Here's what I mean. Let's do a practice exam question. Here's one at the top. When a user starts their computer, the screen remains blank and the computer beeps twice. Which of these would be the most likely cause of this issue? Would it be the boot device is not connected, the memory is faulty, the operating system has become corrupted, or the PC is infected with malware? Now, of course, I could use my annotation that's in my PDF reader here, and I could start marking different answers into this. It is a PDF. It's a book. You can annotate it however you would like. But you'll notice on here that I have other answers here. You can go to a quick answers page that has all of the answers there for you to work through. But you've also got the details. There it is, page 49. Now, you could flip through to page 49, but it's a PDF, so I just made it a link. So you click where it says the details. It will take you to the answer page for A16, which says that the answer is B, the memory is faulty. And then I give you an explanation of why that is the right answer. I think a lot of practice exams do that. My problem, though, is I never get these questions right, and I'm left hanging. I don't know why my question was wrong. So in every single wrong answer in my book, I explain why that answer is wrong. I think that even if you get the question right, you should read through these, because on your exam, you might run into that particular answer on a different kind of question. And I've given you the answers for that, what that would be. So you not only know why an answer is right, you know why all the wrong answers are wrong. And then if you still need a little more detail, I've got links right at the bottom with a QR code and links that are built into this that will take you over to the Professor Messer website, directly to this video, so that then you can get that answer. And then once you're done, I can click the back button in my browser and go right back to where I started and go to the next question that's in my list. These are my practice exams. You can find them on my website at professormesser.com/core1pe for Core 1 practice exams, and be able to work through all of those. This is something that every penny of this goes back to supporting the website and keeping things running. All the videos, of course, are always free. They are always available. Every single video is available for free. But if you'd like just some well-made, well-designed, really exam-specific practice exams, that's what we really designed these to be. Find out more at professormesser.com. There's links in the pull-down menus, or go to professormesser.com/core1pe. Let's do some more questions. I like when we can sort of do more questions while we're doing questions. That worked out pretty good. Let's do more questions while we're doing questions. This question asks, a cloud application is designed to add and remove resources as the load changes. Which of the following would describe this characteristic? Is that fault tolerant, rapid elasticity, metered, community, or resource pooling? A cloud application is designed to add and remove resources as the load changes. Which of the following would describe this characteristic? Is it fault tolerant, rapid elasticity, metered, community, or resource pooling? If you think you know the answer, please know answers in the chat room. Please know hints in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. We'll figure out what these answers are. This is one where you have to know your cloud content, and there's plenty of cloud content on the A+ exam. I would imagine there'll be even more cloud content as the years go on. We've seen an increase in cloud content to the Security Plus. They've added more content to Network Plus. Everybody's run the cloud. So you have to be able to understand the technologies and how they operate. You're going to be using them extensively. And this is one where you do have to know how you would use this technology and be able to work through these. Let's see if you do know the answer by going to professormesser.com/QA and locking in your answer. See what that happens to be. This is one that's should help you too if you're studying for this exam. I know that the cloud section, it's interesting. The section on cloud computing is relatively small number of objectives compared to the rest of the exam, but it's a pretty large percentage of questions given how small it is. So it's one of those situations where you do have to understand what those happen to be. Maybe this is something that can help you as well. See if you know what this is. Lock in that answer, professormesser.com/QA. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a cloud application is designed to add and remove resources as the load changes. Which of the following would describe this characteristic? Is it fault tolerant, rapid elasticity, metered, community, or resource pooling? And we can see that 67% of you say it's rapid elasticity. We have 22% of you that say it's resource pooling. And then you have 7% that said metered, 2% that say fault tolerant, and 2% that say community. There are all these different characteristics you have to know about cloud computing. And this is probably one of the characteristics of cloud computing that very often is just ignored. You know, I've heard people explain cloud computing and just say, all cloud computing is a computer that's somewhere else. It's a computer that's somewhere outside somewhere else. That's not, I mean, that is true. They're not wrong, but that's not really what cloud computing is about. Cloud computing is about building this infrastructure, and then when a sale happens, when it's a holiday, when it's the end of the month, whenever something big happens, behind the scenes, your systems can automatically recognize that there is a big change. There's a big demand on your resources, and can begin adding additional resources behind the scenes automatically, invisibly to your users, so that suddenly what could have been a network outage or a web server outage turns into more capacity instead. The way we describe that automation that adds and removes capacity once the load goes down is called rapid elasticity, like a spring, like a rubber band, being able to scale up, being able to scale down, and have that happen almost always automatically. This is something that makes it very, very useful if you're doing any type of cloud computing, because now you can really build this out into being a very valuable and available system. You're always online. Your application is always there for people. So that's one of the goals with having this rapid elasticity. My site, I've just sort of over-engineered. I probably should take advantage of rapid elasticity on my site, but I don't. We just have everything running all the time and hope we are able to keep up with the load. So far, we've done pretty well with that. That's why B, rapid elasticity, is the right answer For those 67% of you that answered that, you got it absolutely right. Resource pooling is where you would take these resources that you're using, memory, storage, CPU, and you're pooling them together and creating a large group. And then as you build out systems, you can logically carve out a little from the pool to be able to use. We commonly associate this with storage, but it can be associated with other resources as well. So you can build an entire enormous drive array, but what if you're building a server that really only needs 20 gig of storage space? Well, you just pull out 20 gig from the pool and you're able to now build out another virtual machine without wasting storage drive. Pretty useful to have in that scenario. We've got 7% that said metered. A metered configuration is one where you can track what people are doing with their meter, with the configurations. I've got, for example, a flat fee for a lot of the things that I do on my website, but other things are measured where I have to pay as I use them. So the metered functionality comes into play for those. It's pretty important to be able to do the billing at the end, especially if you are the service provider. We've got 2% that said fault tolerant, 2% that said community. Fault tolerance when you build an infrastructure that's able to recover on a failure or maintain uptime on a failure. So fault tolerance is a common engineering concept when building out your systems. Instead of having one web server, let's do 2 web servers. In fact, that's Professor Messer website. When you go to professormesser.com, I have multiple ways to maintain and keep things up and running. That fault tolerance is an important part of how I engineer all of those. And then lastly, a community configuration. Really describes how the deployment is done. Community configurations are where a group of organizations, usually with a like purpose, will, instead of them individually buying these cloud resources, will go in on a community method so that they can spend less but still have all of the benefits of the cloud. That is a community configuration. In our case, we were looking for a way to increase and decrease all of our load capacity. And the way we would do that is by using B, rapid elasticity. 67% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done with that. The interesting part about this question is that we did so well on it. So I think a lot of you are doing very well with your cloud concepts. Keep doing what you're doing, because whatever you're doing, it's working. For those of you that are following or at least watching this for continuing education unit credit, you want to follow these instructions so that I can get those credits off to you. I'll email you an email that says, well, you must have been here because you followed these instructions. If you do not follow these instructions, then you won't get an email from me. First thing you want to do is go to the Professor Messer website. At the top or the bottom is a Contact Us link. Click that Contact Us link. It'll bring up a form. And in that form, put your name, put your email address, put in the subject line, August 2021 Core 1. Something that lets me know what study group you are watching. And then in the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, community. That's what you want to, that's the super secret code word. Weren't expecting that one, were you? It's community is the super secret code word of the month. Go to the Professor Messer website, click on the top or the bottom where it says Contact Us. Put your name, your email address in the subject line. Put it's the August 2021 Core 1. And then on a line by itself, put the word community. You can also put whatever you would like in there as well. So if you have other things you would like to send me, I'm the one reading through all of those. You can do that, and I will be glad to read through them. I'm not necessarily able to respond back to all of them, but I do read through every single thing you send me, all of it, to be able to go through there. So that might help you as well. I know we're at the top of the hour, and I know that I said I'd be doing that for an hour, but I did talk a little bit today. So let's do one more question. We'll go into overtime here. This next question asks, a user is sending a job to the printer, but the printer is not responding to any print requests. Which of the following would be the first step when troubleshooting this issue? Would it be update the printer driver, perform a test print from the printer, change the printer configuration from PostScript to PCL, replace the fuser, or upgrade the printer firmware. A user is sending a job to the printer, but the printer is not responding to any print requests. Which of the following would be the first step when troubleshooting this issue? Would it be update the printer driver, perform a test print from the printer, change the printer configuration from PostScript to PCL, replace the fuser, or upgrade the printer firmware? Now, if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll be able to figure out what this happens to be all on our own, just like we were in a real exam. No Googling. You're not going to find it in Google anyway, because I wrote this question last week and did not put it on Google. So that's one of those that you won't find it until it's there. Whenever I start going through and really focusing on these questions, I try to make them similar in style. We only have so much room on the screen, and it is a interactive type thing, but I do try to make them at least similar in tone and structure to the actual exam. So on your exam, you're going to have a lot of first step, the most specific or most common, the most likely answer, the best answer. Those are common whenever you're working through these. So the exam's going to have a lot of those. And some people get frustrated. The exam has all of these best and first and most, but that's the exam. So be ready for that. The best way to not be frustrated by it is to embrace it and really understand what they are looking for. This is a really good example of this, by the way. If I must say so myself, I think this is a pretty good example of what this is. Might be useful to be able to do this. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again, a user is sending a job to the printer, but the printer is not responding to any print requests. Which of the following would be the first step when troubleshooting this issue? Would it be to update the printer driver, perform a test print from the printer, change the printer configuration from PostScript to PCL, replace the fuser, or upgrade the printer firmware? This is one where there's actually an easy way to get to the answer, even if you don't know the answer. We'll step through. First, let's see how you did with this one. Let's show our results, and they show that 68% of you say to perform a test print from the printer. 25% of you, though, say you update the printer driver is your first step. You also have single digits. 5% said upgrade the printer firmware. 2% said change the printer configuration from PostScript to PCL. And 1% said to replace the fuser. So 67% is a pretty strong number. But is that really the right number? Because we have a printer that won't print. There's no output. The first thing we should do before we make any changes, and that is a key piece to this question, is before any changes happen, let's do everything we can without making a configuration change. And right now, we don't even know if the printer works. Is the printer even turned on? We don't know. So let's do a test print from the printer. Doing a test print from the printer removes a network configuration issue, a cable issue, a driver issue, and even a firmware issue. Instead, we're just being able to determine, does the printer work? If it does print, is the printer going to be able to make that print happen? And if you go over and you notice, you try to do a test print and you notice there's no power, well, then there you go. That's your first stop, is to figure out why you're not getting power. Or you do a test print and it prints great. Now you know the printer is functional. So the problem's got to be somewhere outside of the printer. So this is a great place where you're sort of cutting the problem in two. And you can determine, is the problem on the printer side? Is the problem on anything but the printer? And this is also, as we go back to this question, this is also a really great problem to start breaking this out. Now, if it's outside the scope of the printer, we can start checking other things. We can start looking at the cables. We could look at the network configuration. We can look at the queue, make sure something's in the queue. Is it even in the queue? Maybe it's not printing because they're sending the printer to the 3rd floor. Here we are on the 1st floor. Sometimes it happens. And then maybe if that's not working, maybe a different application. Maybe the application they're using is the problem. And then we can worry about making changes. Maybe it is the driver. Maybe it is the firmware. Maybe something else is an issue somewhere along the lines. But if you have to make a configuration change, make sure that you've checked everything else before that. And that, I think, was sort of the second moral of this particular question, is being able to do that. In fact, let's look at the question again, which is a user sending a job to the printer, but the printer's not responding to print requests. Which of the following would be the first step when troubleshooting this issue? So even if you don't know the exact answer, you can almost figure it out from here, because only one of these answers does not involve a configuration change. So we've got updating the printer driver. That's a pretty big configuration change. You have to have administrator access to be able to do that in Windows. So updating the printer driver overwrites and changes the configuration of your system. Not something you want to do as your first task. That's not, maybe ultimately that's what's required, but it shouldn't be the first thing you do. Perform a test print from the printer, we know is the right answer. Change the printer configuration from PostScript to PCL. Well, if the printer was set for the wrong language, that is a printer language. PostScript is one language. PCL is another. Printer control language, literally what that is from HP. But those two would at least print something if the printer was working. So changing the printer configuration is not going to somehow magically make the printer start working. So that's not, plus it's a configuration change. Why would you change the language of the printer? That is a big change. That is a significant change. Are you then going to go to everybody's driver and change all of their drivers to use the new language? That doesn't even make sense. So obviously that is a change. It's not something we would do first. Replace the fuser. We don't know the problems of the fuser. Commonly, if a fuser is your problem, that is one of the last phases of the laser printing process. That heat and pressure literally fuses the toner onto the paper permanently. So if your fuser's not working, then your paper comes out and it's cold. You know immediately when the fuser's broken because you're used to that piping warm printer paper when it comes out of the laser printer, and then you realize this is cold. And then you touch the toner and it smears everywhere. It's not being fused to the paper. So in this case, that's not our problem. In this case, our problem is not printing at all. It has nothing to do with the fuser. And lastly, upgrading the printer firmware. Again, we have no clue in here that the firmware is part of the problem. It's unlikely someone changed their firmware and didn't test it to begin with. That's something that, in fact, updating the firmware of the printer rarely happens. And in our case, making a change. It makes a change, therefore not the first thing you should do. You should be collecting a lot more data before you make changes. So answer A, C, D, and E are all changes. They all make a change to the system. Don't do that first. Your first step should be gathering information, doing some tests, running through diagnostics. And that's what we did when we performed a test print from the printer. Answer B, 68% of you got that one absolutely right. You were able to run the test, determine that the printer was or was not the problem, and then you can proceed with everything else that's there. So that's one of those where it's important. The wording is not tricky. The wording is precise. And it's very clear what's going on, but you have to be sure to read through these questions very carefully, which is why I put them in that context, because it's certainly a potential for what you might see on the exam. Absolutely something you should know. All the questions we did today came from the CompTIA exam objectives. Incredibly important that you have these objectives. They are free already. That's a good thing. And the objectives have a link on my website. Take you right over there, professormesser.com/objectives. There's a link on that page that will take you right there. It is one that has all of the information you need to determine, am I ready to take this exam or not? Which I think is a pretty important thing to know to be able to do that. Make sure you get your hands on those objectives incredibly valuable. That's why I just say it over and over and over again. It's so important. We do one of these study groups every month for Core 1. We also do Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus every month. So our next A+ study group is our Core 2 study group tomorrow. We don't usually do these back to back. So come back tomorrow at 12 Eastern time, same time as today, same bat channel. Just show up and we'll do a Core 2. Why not? I've already written the questions. They're all ready to go. You can't even see them. They're private. But next month, we'll have 2 more on September 14th, September 16th. There's A+. September 22nd is our Network Plus, and September 29th is Security Plus. There's also more during the week. Let me go back to that. Right there at the bottom is the calendar. There's also a calendar link on my website. Go to professormesser.com/calendar, and you can, of course, see when the next live event is going to be there, which could be really useful too. These live events are, we're always doing something. So feel free to have a look at the calendar. You'll know exactly when the next live event is going to be. Can you believe we've been going an hour? But we're not done. Stick around for the after show. I've asked you all the questions. Now you get to ask me questions in the after show. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Don't forget about our course notes and practice exams at professormesser.com/1001success. You have to buy a voucher eventually. Why wouldn't you buy a voucher that's at a discount? Don't pay full price. Go to professormesser.com/voucher and get my free Exam Hacks ebook, which might possibly get you some extra points on the exam. And don't forget to follow us. If you liked this hour, click that thumbs up button. My friends at YouTube really like that. In fact, they like it so much, they just added me to a beta. If you watch any of my videos, there's now a thanks button underneath that some people have said, I wish I could contribute to the things that you're doing. And traditionally, I just haven't taken contributions, probably just because it's too difficult to set up for me. That's not true, but it just seems pointless. But they added me to a thanks process. So under a video, you can now click the video and contribute to the channel, which I think was a nice thing to do. And you don't have to, though. They're still free. Every minute of every video is still free. We're not taking stuff away. We're just putting more stuff on there. We want to thank you for being here. We would not be able to do these study groups without you. Stick around for the next hour of Q&A. I'll open up the phone lines, take questions from the chat room. And thank you for being here on our A+ study group. We will see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Yes, you have to play the algorithm, and you play the algorithm by liking and subscribing. I think that's how we do it. We'll figure it out. So how do you call in? Well, I don't even have my Skype up for me to call in. I don't even have my numbers here. If you bear with me a moment, it takes me a second to get my call in running here. So I'll type all these things in on my side. I'll have to put in an email address. There we go. And then I will tell you how you can call in on these. Let me host a show here real quick. It's all cloud-based, right? Even my call-in is cloud-based. I set up the cloud-based call-in system. I call in to my own call-in system, interestingly enough. Let's see if I can do that. I need to run the Skype. There it is. And you will hear me call in just a moment. Then I'll explain how you can call in just a moment.
Thank you.
All right, let's type in our super secret buttons here with the pound sign. And the nice lady says,
6-digit PIN.
All right, my 6-digit PIN is this one. And if I do that right, she says,
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Well, thank you. Welcome to you, nice lady. It's nice of you to welcome me. That means that I can welcome you, except I don't have the right lower third up, so I have to change my graphics around. It's a lot of moving parts here, people. I don't know what to tell you. It's a lot going on. You can, of course, put questions into the chat room. I'm watching the chat go by, and have been since we are here. So if you're on YouTube or on my website, we're looking at that chat as it goes by. But you can also call in with a question. This is using your telephone with voice communication. Toll-free number in the U.S., 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. We've also got a way that you could call in for free using Skype, because toll-free numbers are free on Skype. You don't need any Skype minutes, but you have to put a +1 at the beginning. That's the difference on these questions, is the +1. So put a +1, 855-785-7545 if you're calling in on Skype. So that's one very good way to do it. And the phone line's already full. Everybody's called in very quickly. So we've already got questions waiting, which tells me we should really go right to the questions and get some of these folks answered. First, let's go to Florida Connection. It's Tampa, the 813 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, hello. This is William from Tampa, Florida.
Hello, William from Tampa. What can I do for you?
I am calling. I am in the process of making a major career change into the IT field.
Great.
Coming from healthcare.
Okay.
My question is, I just signed up for a veteran program to go take a bunch of the certifications.
Great.
Network Plus, Security Plus, CCNA. And they recommended I bring my own laptop, and I was curious if there's, from your IT perspective, is there's anything specific to a laptop I should look into?
Probably not. It's unlikely, given those particular parameters of those exam types, that you would need anything too outside the scope of what most devices can do. The thing that sort of is probably going to help a lot is knowing what operating system they're really focusing on. If they're really doing a lot of CompTIA A Plus stuff, most of what you're going to be doing is Windows related. But you're kind of clear either way, whether you're using Mac OS or whether you're using Windows. I guess you could be using Linux on your laptop as well.
Gotcha.
But there's plenty of things that would allow you to run a virtual machine on top of that you could then run Windows on. In fact, we often talk about in the study group of going to modern.ie. For those of you that have not been there before, modern as in thoroughly modern, Millie, as in the modern world. That is a website that is a Microsoft developer website. But what's important about that website is the resources pull down, or is the tools pull down? Tools pull down has virtual machines in it. There it is, tools and virtual machines. Microsoft makes VMs available for you that you could run Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 for free with these virtual machines. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to register or anything. You just download them and you're off to the races. They work for 90 days on these, and they're absolutely free. So if you're studying for your A+ and you're running Mac OS and you wanted to build out a VM, or maybe you're running Windows 10 and you don't remember how it used to be in Windows 7, and that could come up on the exam, they've got a VM for Windows 7. And you could load up Windows 7, and then you'd be up and running with that particular version of Windows, and you can't break anything because it's just a VM. It's a great way to do it. So
I was just figured I'd ask because the course instructor said that the store at their campus offers like the MacBook Air for $750.
yeah, that's not a bad operating system. You can run Mac OS and then run Linux and Windows VMs on top of that. If you're getting into a lot of networking, a lot of support issues, you're doing a lot of switch and router configurations, all you really need is SSH. There's plenty of SSH clients for Windows, plenty of SSH clients for Linux and Mac OS. A lot of professionals in IT tend to gravitate towards Mac OS for a lot of different reasons, especially if you're planning to get into the security side. But for the purposes of getting your certifications, Windows and Linux probably works just as fine there. I don't have a particular dog in that hunt. Whatever works best for whatever you like to use the best, you will be able to make it work to be able to pass these exams with all the tools and things available out there. You're not going to have a problem.
Gotcha. I appreciate all your material. I'm hoping to get into healthcare IT.
There's a huge opportunity there with healthcare. It is high tech. It is some of the newest, fastest networks. There is tons of storage and networking and security. You can't go wrong. It's a great place to be. Best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks,
William. That's all, I think that's probably one of the most enormous segments right now is being able to do that. That really helps a lot. The website that I just showed that has these virtual machines, modern.ie. modern.ie, modern.ie for Internet Explorer, oddly enough, because it's a developer site from Microsoft. It will redirect you to a different site in being able to do that. But modern.ie is the one there that will get you there. I think I can help you. Let's go back to the phones. Other side of the country, it's Oregon. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, I'm Tom. I'm calling from Salem, Oregon. How you doing?
Hey, Tom from Salem. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Oh, man, I just so appreciate this, and I appreciate the tool you just shared. I mean, normally Internet Explorer, the only thing good for that is downloading Chrome.
Yeah, you get, at least get Windows out of the deal.
Right. So I actually am a Mac user, and I've been doing a CompTIA class since mid-May. And I just found this resource, and I found it very helpful. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Great. Thank you.
And then I love that the last caller actually talked about IT for med because my story is crazy. I won't give you the long-winded story, but I lost my arm hitting a dumpster on a bicycle.
Wow.
And yeah, and so this whole class, you know, I'm trying my hand at this IT stuff,
so to speak,
and I have a little bit of yeah, right. I got offhand comments on all my classes, but I guess my question goes: I just signed up I'm taking the test 13 days from now, and I'm right on the line as far as like getting like 60 to 80% of the material. And just like that printer question you just did, you know, I was thinking driver, but I didn't even think about, I just don't have like a ton of real world experience. So I know how to take the test. My concern is if I go to an organization or just being a help desk here at home, because I've been doing all these Zoom calls, because going from bedbound to everybody coming into my bedroom through Zoom, and what an amazing opportunity that was. But my question stems from, I love that you have a homegrown setup there and you're showing us all the Skype stuff and all those tools, but can I use the tools from just being certified to going to being a real world solution provider? Like, I used to do buried wire for Verizon, so I was putting fiber optics in the ground. And I'm like, I can't work with my hands now. I've got to use this muscle between my ears. So how do I get that kind of stuff? Is it just going to be from doing virtual machines through the modern, link that you provided? Or I don't know, I guess just the soft skills through the conversation we're having now?
It's kind of a combination of things. One of the things that you really can't prepare for is your first IT position. The crazy part is, you really can't prepare yourself for any IT position because you're constantly going to run into things that are baffling, that you've never seen before, that nobody has ever seen before. There will be things that are common that I just need a password change. Gotcha. Or somebody will come and say, I'm having an intermittent problem where my HD resolution decreases down to VGA and then back to HD. Like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. You kind of have to dig into it, do more research, show me what you're talking about. You will constantly be in this mode where a lot of the times you get to tell people, you know what? I have no idea. It's so common. People are kind of scared of it, but it is actually one of the most common things you're going to do, because how could you possibly know everything? Nobody knows everything. This is one of these types of jobs that will constantly be challenging, as you say, that muscle between your ears, being able to look at a problem, understand what's going on, and start making some assumptions about what you think it is, what you know it isn't, and start breaking down and determining where to go from there. And very often it means you're going to have to be calling somebody. Like, I don't know about that, but I do have an associate who works with this a lot. Let me contact them. Or as I'm going through the process of troubleshooting, I'm hitting wall after wall after wall. That's just normal. That's just part of the job. It's part of what we do. So don't worry so much about, am I ever going to be able to get enough real world experience to be able to sit in some of these positions? Because everybody who's going to hire you is going to take you through training. If they don't, then they're not a very good employer. But every person I've ever worked for at the very lowest level, at the very highest level, my last job was as a senior systems engineer for a next generation firewall company, and they put me through extensive training before I ever saw my first customer. And when I went to my first customer, I wasn't the lead. Somebody else was with me. They sort of showed me how the ropes worked out in the field for their particular product. Now, I brought to the table skills that I had honed through the years. They didn't have to explain to me how to present to people. What they had to explain to me is what topics were most important to show people, those types of things. So you do have to be able to be first, you have to be able to accept that you don't know all of this stuff and even tell people, yeah, I don't know. In fact, it's better if you know. If you don't know, it's so much better if you tell them you don't know. But I know who to call. But I know who to involve with this, and we're going to figure it out. The other thing is you're going to learn next time when you saw that and you fixed it. Now you know next time. So you're already learning from there. And the other piece of this that I think is important is being able to build on those things so that when you get into those jobs, you're constantly learning every day. You're constantly getting more knowledge in your brain, and you'll be able to use that to move to whatever that next job is that you're going to hit along your path, whatever that path is.
Absolutely. So kind of like a developer type mindset. I'm always getting like putting those new tools to practice and putting those in and building upon the experience, because if you just fail, then you're just starting from experience. You're not starting as, the top loser. But I would say that I appreciate so much that you instill that confidence, and I'll just do the next right thing. And shout out to my class evening CompTIA, and I'm looking forward to, the exam and just doing the next right thing for my career. And I just appreciate so much the tool that you bring to the table.
Tom, I think you're right on the right track. You're doing the things that make sense for the positions that you like. And given the craziness that you've been through, it sounds like you've got a great attitude on top of it, which is 90% of the battle. Best of luck.
And one last thing.
Sure.
I'm not going to recreate the wheel, but there's going to be all these new technologies out there. Do you think that there's any chance that, that new technology could come from any situation, even a guy like me, possibly?
This is one of the interesting things about this is that 15 years ago, we didn't train people on the internet with videos that anyone in the world could watch. The technology literally did not exist. The thing that I am doing right now with you on the phone wasn't something we could do. It just wasn't an option. These changes with technology, whether it is moving from hubs to switches, whether it's going from physical devices to virtual devices, or extending the functionality of the internet in ways that we haven't even thought about yet, are constantly happening, which means when these waves come along, if you can manage to find yourself at the beginning of that wave, you become the ad hoc expert. You are by default the expert in whatever that technology is. So throughout your career, there will be a number of waves of these new technologies coming along. And if you are lucky enough to find yourself at the very beginnings of those, it could be first very exciting from a technology perspective to be involved with that. I got a taste of that when I started working with the next gen firewall company, because when I started there were no next gen firewalls. So it was kind of exciting to kind of shepherd the new technology into the world. The other part that I find interesting with that is you're learning, but there are also some really significant career advantages to being at the beginning of those waves that can move you up, take you to different jobs, give you the flexibility to have the job type that you would like, and perhaps even the flexibility of where you would have that job. All of those things come into play. So keep an eye out for those. Keep watching the vendors. Keep watching the analysts. You can only read and believe a portion of what you would find on a website. But if you're looking at some of the big analysts like Gartner, every year Gartner says, here's what we think is going to be hot this year. And if you start looking back at those through the years, you can see they were right more than they were wrong. And if you can find the right mix of those in your world, it's remarkable what it can do for you in your career.
Cool stuff. Thank you, Professor.
Thanks, Tom. Best of luck. This is one of those situations, though, that we all often don't think about it this way. I see people on Reddit and on other places will talk about, I want to go into IT. I want to do something in IT, but I look at it and boy, it just looks horrible. You're just sitting in a cube with headphones on taking phone calls. I thought, well, that's, maybe the first 6 months of your life in IT as we sort of teach you the ropes. But most of the IT jobs are nothing like that. I've had jobs that where I get on a plane on a Monday, I would fly around the country talking to people and then come home on a Friday. Or I've had jobs where I did that internationally, where every other week I would be flying to a different country, which I realize if you're in Europe, that's not a big deal. But here in the US, you're flying other places. You're flying to Europe, you're flying to Asia, you're flying to Australia, and saw things and was able to experience things I never thought I'd be able to do thanks to what I was doing with IT. And I didn't sit in a cube and I didn't have headphones on. I wasn't yelled at by people. So that's one of those things. You should absolutely find your niche. Once you start getting a nice knowledge base, you get to have more options. You get to decide what you want to do. And it's just part of IT, part of what we do. Back the phones. Thanks for holding for so long. 614. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Columbus, Ohio. My name is Jasmine Pugh.
Hey, Jazz. Thanks for calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Yes, sir. I'll get straight to it, man. I purchased my voucher through CompTIA for the A+ a year ago, and I kind of been running from actually taking the test. There's definitely a lot of information to take and to hold, and I've kind of been running from the exam. Since then, I had a job 7 years working in IT, and since then I've actually went back to school for cybersecurity. I'm in a boot camp at the Ohio State University.
Oh, great!
And I also have a opportunity job I just took for a ServiceNow developer, and I have no developing skills. I just have experience with ServiceNow.
Okay.
So my question is just like, at this point, I've been told by other IT professionals that, hey man, just forget the A+, focus on what's in front of you, focus on your cybersecurity, because they offer, at the end of the course, they offer cloud, network, security, Linux, or there's one more option, but they're pretty much saying, hey, that A+ at this point, where you're going, it's not really necessary. And I'm still trying to, it expires in September, and I'm still trying to debate if I should continue with this, go ahead and take the test, because I don't want to lose the voucher or the test. But, with everything on my plate, it's kind of overwhelming to be learning cybersecurity, coding, Linux, and still studying for this test. So that's kind of where I'm at, trying to figure out, am I doing too much? Should I just focus on one thing? What do you think?
The list of things that you spelled out there is a lot. There is no question. And at least you're able, I don't even have to spell that out for you, because you've sort of implied that with the question that you're asking, because you don't often see a meshing together of IT and what I call computer science, which is the programming side or the development side of things. Those are two very different worlds. There is not a big need for IT people to know how to develop applications, just as there's no need for application developers to know how to do the IT pieces. Those two worlds rarely collide. Now, in IT, obviously, we need to know how to automate. I'm not saying that we don't do scripting and we do automation. We do tons of scripting and tons of automation. It's the core of what we do. We've done it forever in technology. But programming and building an application and building a web-based app and building a mobile app, those are sort of on the computer science side. So if you're really looking at going into IT security, then you're really not going to be doing any programming. You will be doing tons of scripting, understanding how to orchestrate, especially there will be cloud-based systems associated with that. Orchestration is a huge part of that. Being able to access the API of a firewall and make the firewall do things programmatically, that's definitely an IT type thing, but you're not building an app. That's kind of where I separate those two things together. So I would say if you're really looking at security, then there's a focus there, but you also have to find out in your particular area if employers are hiring people with entry-level security positions, because that's another important part of this, is that we need to have a job, and is that job going to be one that they're looking for my cybersecurity degree from The Ohio State University? Are they looking at my previous experience? Are they looking at the labs that I've set up in my home where I was running pfSense or Snort? Are they looking at whatever they're looking at? All of these different criteria. Are they looking for A+ certification? So there, I think, is where most people will go is, do I need to take the A+ or not? Well, at that point, it's not really up to you. It's really up to the hiring manager. Do they want to see A+? And given that the number of entry-level positions in IT are very small when it comes to security and much larger compared to kind of the general help desk to get in, there certainly are many more non-security specific jobs available in entry-level in IT. Now, your resume is a little bit different. You've already got some IT experience. You probably skip over the help desk. You probably would go up to a support level. But is that support going to be for an operating system? Will it be for Windows or Linux? Will it be support for the network? Or do you know someone who's already in a security role? Have you already worked with some companies that do security things? And maybe they're willing to bring you in on the security side at an entry level just because you have the particular degree you have. I say all of this because there's no right or wrong answer. In fact, there's no specific answer to tell you, yes, you need an A+ or no, you don't need an A+. It's more about you doing a little more research of the employers in your area and the opportunities that fit your particular knowledge level to see what they're asking for. And if you look at 10 of those jobs and you see nobody in those 10 jobs asked for A+, well, that's your answer. But if some of them did ask for an A+, maybe that's a useful thing to have in your pocket. It sounds like you're right there on that higher level between A+ being useful in the job hunt and A+ not being useful in the job hunt. And you're really going to have to make that answer for yourself. It's probably just going to take a little more research.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Thank you for the information, man. I've been following you for a minute, man. I've been watching all your videos with the CompTIA for the last year. But yeah, man, I'll definitely consider that information you just gave me.
However it works out, you've got the right path. You're doing the right things. Everything you mentioned was spot on with moving up into one of those IT security roles. It's one of those situations where I think you've got all the right ingredients. Now you just need to bake that cake and get that job, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. Hey, well, thanks, man. You take care, man. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jazz. Best of luck. I think that's really useful. In fact, he was sort of doing all the things I mentioned doing when you're trying to get that job in IT. You've got your formal education, you've got certifications, you've got some practical experience, which Jazz certainly did. And then the fourth one I mentioned, I guess, Jazz maybe didn't mention, is knowing someone who already works there. Doesn't even have to be someone in IT. Don't dismiss that fourth element. Really, really important. In fact, maybe that's what Jazz should be working on, is building out your LinkedIn, making sure all of your connections know what you're doing. Maybe if you do something interesting in your cybersecurity classes, post it on LinkedIn. Look what we did today. Here's something I'm working on. Just do a screenshot of the Wireshark you have running. Do a screenshot of the SQL injection you just performed. Do a screen and just show people, look how cool this stuff is. Let people know that you're in that particular market, and they will remember it, and they will go back and they will find you and want to hire you for that position. It has happened before. It will happen again. Let's go to the 323 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Sean Davis from Inglewood, California.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
So definitely I'm studying for the CompTIA A+ exam. I have zero experience as far as hands-on training. So I was wondering after I pass the test, because I know I'm gonna pass it, should I start off with a remote job or should I do an in-person job? I know you said some jobs train you, but if it's remote, I don't think that's like hands-on training.
That it's a little more challenging when it's remote, isn't it? We're sort of figured this out though
Right.
over the last year and a half. I think most organizations have shifted their methods to be more to the onboarding process is certainly more remote than it has ever been. And I think many employers have figured out how to make that happen yet, or make it happen for them. And I would think that if you're starting with a company and they're a reputable company, they're going to train you and they will be able to train you remotely. I don't see that as being an advantage or disadvantage for what you're doing. Most organizations will want you to understand their philosophy, their methods, the process internally. They'll want you to know who you contact if you run into a problem. There's all these scenarios they will set up for you. And whether you're in an office, a physical office, or whether you're online somewhere, I don't think that changes very much. If you do end up getting a job and they just sort of sit in front of a laptop and go this URL and best of luck, then you've probably chosen badly. And it's maybe time to look for another job. Those do happen. I'm not saying those don't exist. I'm saying that that's something to watch out for. They should be trading you. But where that job happens may be dependent on the job itself. There are support jobs available in a place that does manufacturing. Maybe it's a company that makes their own products. Well, you probably need to be stationed in that facility so that if a problem happens with the assembly line, you can physically go to that device and fix it and do it quickly and get everything back up and running because so many dollars are associated with that. But there are certainly jobs, and I worked with people well before we went into sort of the lockdown mode. Years before this, there were jobs available for service providers where people worked from home. Certainly worked from home. Some of them 1 or 2 times a week. Some of them were at home all the time because it was constant sort of a second or third level support position where they were only called if nobody else could figure it out. And they were experts in what they did, and they would be able to answer the phone because they had people they were answering questions for all over the world. And so they physically couldn't be all over the world, but they could be at a desk answering the calls and making it happen. Usually those types of jobs, though, are once you've been in the industry, you've gained some expertise in what you're doing. You have some unique knowledge that other people don't have, that now you've got leverage. And those people use that leverage to work from home, and it worked great for them.
Gotcha. I have one more question.
Sure.
Actually, I wrote it down here so I won't forget.
Good.
Since I don't have any experience upon the interview, should I tell them I just don't have an experience? Because a lot of employers, even outside of IT, ask, about an experience that you had within, some realm of the form of the job, but I don't have any experience. So I don't know what to say on that type of question.
Oh, it's that catch-22, the universal catch-22, where the employer wants you to have experience to get the job, but if they don't give you the job, you're never going to have experience. It is the universal truth that has been this way forever and will continue to be this way forever. But there are things you can do. On this YouTube video, I have in the YouTube video description a video I did. It's 30 minutes long, and I apologize it's for the length, but I don't apologize for the length because I think it's just chock full of data where it's a video on how to get a job in IT with no experience. That's the title of the video. And I approached this problem because I told you about those 4 elements in that previous call where you need a formal education. These are best case scenarios. You need a formal education. You need certifications. You need to know people that work there. And you need some type of practical experience. I say practical experience because it doesn't necessarily have to be professional experience, meaning that someone's not necessarily paying you to have this practical experience. One way that people are able to do that is through volunteering. There's lots of great websites out there that can connect smart people with organizations that need help. Sometimes it's connecting with someone you already know who works in these organizations, sort of blends together who you know with maybe practical experience. And I also in this video give you some examples of projects you can do at home in a home network, occasionally with a virtual machine, which means you can run it almost always on an existing system that you have, where you're setting up your own firewall, you're setting up your own IPS, you're setting up your own cloud-based system. I gave you some, maybe you build out your own Active Directory infrastructure. So I explain where you can download the evaluation versions of Windows Server and set up your own Active Directory config. You know, all of those technologies are there and available, and they can basically all run on your existing desktop or, of course, run on a machine you might have sitting around somewhere. Those give you the ability to plug into actual network connections, to run your own internet firewall through this system, and more importantly, to have stories about what you find. Because I guarantee you, if you plug into your internet connection with a firewall that can really report on what's happening over that connection, you will be surprised. You will be agog. You will be amazed at the things you will find either blocked by that firewall or things that you're sending out to the rest of the internet that you had no idea you were sending. And the only way to do that is if you load these things up and run them in your own lab. And that, I think, is a great way to do it. You can then tell the employer, tell me about a problem you had to solve. Tell me about a situation you ran into that was really an issue. And you can say, well, I just saw this thing on my home lab. I set up pfSense. I set up these other, maybe a snort, and I started catching a particular virus, a particular worm, a particular thing that was being sent in through email or from, it was being blocked by the firewall on that side. I did some research and found it was this worm that's still running after 10 years, that's still running on the internet side. You will still find those things. That's a great story, especially if you have the reports already printed and in your folder that you brought with you to the interview and say, here's the report I created from that information. I always tell people, if you go to an interview, have something you can leave with them that's got your name on it, not just a report you printed out, but make sure your name or at least your contact information is on it. Or maybe it's stapled to your resume, a physical printed piece of your resume that you could hand to them so that they go, oh, look at these reports you printed. Reports are amazing, by the way, because reports, they are, it seems like it should be the easiest thing in the world. Reports are a mystery to most of the industry. Being able to find the data you need, being able to pull that data back, put it into a form that makes sense for the information that people are trying to use it with, and then create a report on that people, we often call these reports actionable reports. It contains information that now allows us to make decisions about what we do in the future. That is a valuable, valuable, valuable skill. And the more you know about how to create reports from these things that you're already building, like the built-in reports that are in pfSense, or maybe you've created, you've got your pfSense running, maybe you build another virtual machine running Splunk or some other type of SIM, and you're pulling in the log files into Splunk, and you're creating a report from Splunk. Now you start telling somebody who's interviewing you about all these technologies I just mentioned, that's some good conversation, and it takes you to a different level in the talk, in the interview, because now you're not only answering these questions they have about, are you capable enough to do this job? Now you're having conversations about the crazy stuff you saw. Isn't that amazing? And it leaves an impression with them. You've got to come in the door better than anyone else who comes in the door. And that's just one of the many ways you could do that.
Gotcha. So a lot of preparation and building your own, pretty much your portfolio, so you can have that self-based experience.
If it was easy and took no time, everybody would do it.
Correct. That's pretty much it for me. I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Best of luck.
Thanks.
That's those things that you have, those stories. An interview is a story time. And you don't want the person you're sitting next to, sitting across from in an interview. If you're the person being interviewed, you should be talking. Don't allow them to talk at all until the end. where they say, do you have any questions for me? Then you hit them with the questions you've already prepared for them. You should never be in a situation in an interview where you don't know what the next thing is going to be. It's almost the job of being a lawyer. You know, lawyers don't ask questions unless they already know the answer. It's almost a similar scenario, except kind of reversed. You should be constantly talking and leading the conversation in an interview. And at some point in the interview, they say, you have questions for me. That's when you be quiet and you now hit them with some very specific questions that you've already written down. Like, oh, I wrote down some things. I'm glad you asked. I have some questions for you. I was on your website and I saw this. Or I know somebody who works here and they said this. What do you think? Yeah, those are great questions. It should always be about the job. It should always be about the company. It should always be about impressions. It doesn't have to be something specific. It should never be about, tell me about the money. Tell me about what you're going to give me. It should never be about that. It should be about, tell me about the culture. Tell me about your work day. Tell me about what you love the most about this job. Those are good things. That's where you should focus on. Back to phone calls. 716 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from? Caller. Are you there, caller? Did you hear the beeping noise? That was me. You might be on mute in New York. Are you there?
Oh, hello.
Hello, caller.
Yes. Hey, Mr. Professor. I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I found out in June, towards the ending of it, that Security 501 was expiring.
Oh, yes.
And I hauled as much as I could to study, and you were the go-to. And within 3 weeks, I was able to take my exam and pass it.
Right there at the end. It was a flurry of activity for those of you that are watching, and we're not even aware of this because it's a Security Plus thing. You're right. At the end, on the 31st of July, just a few days ago, the Security Plus 501 exam was retired. Now, the 601 exam came out in November, so it's not like the exam went away. It's just we've been running both of them for a while. But I told people when the 601 came out, 501 is going to be a little bit easier. It's much smaller. You might want to try to do this. And and I always say that people will wait until the last second to do this because we are humans and this is how we work. We all do this. We sort of wait and kind of plan for the last moment. And I got to tell you, those last 2 days were crazy from this side. The number of people, I had no idea just how many people would be taking or trying to earn that 501 before it disappeared. Congratulations on doing it. It's a very difficult exam. In some ways, that exam is harder than the 601 exam just because of the way the questions were presented. But good for you for really cramming it in there, learning everything you needed in a relatively short period of time, and ultimately earning the cert. That is worth a congratulations.
Well, thank you. Honestly, I think it was the first week of July, I had taken one of your practice exams, and I had gotten a 47 out of 90. And I was kind of considering if I should just take the 601, but then I saw your video on why I should take the 501, so then I doubled down even more, and I just kept on going through it. I had to work, so I had to watch your videos while I was driving all the time, and it was just crazy. But once I saw my passing score, I was like, Jesus. And the exam, the questions too were it was crazy. The way they word it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've said over the last 3.5-4 years now, that exam was out for quite a little bit of time and it was extended because of COVID. But one of the things I would tell people, it's almost as much a reading comprehension exam as it is a security exam. And I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, I had to read the question 5 times just to make sure.
One of the for those just as an aside to that, while I'm thinking about it, for those of you who are watching who are planning to take the 601, they've kind of changed the style of the questions a bit to make them a lot more straightforward. They're still not simple questions. Let's be clear, but they're less of a reading comprehension exam and more of a 2 or 3 sentence straightforward question. So I just wanted to let people know.
Well, I would just say, taking your practice exams really had me in the mindset to read the questions thoroughly, because of the few that I missed on your practice, it was because I did not read the question thoroughly. And it was that one little word that made or broke the question and what, the answer was. And that was, what helped me in the end.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that.
But I would just ask, I'm kind of like torn between if I should get my network plus or if I should go for my CySA plus. And I was kind of hoping if you could kind of lead me which direction you think.
Well, it sounds like, and since you're sort of deciding between those two, is security kind of a thing that you're focusing on moving towards? Is that where you'd like to be?
Yes.
Okay. So this is sort of the challenge we all have in this industry, from getting your foot in the door and making these things happen. Are you from a IT experience? Have you had positions in IT before, or would this be your first position?
This would be my first position.
Okay.
But I've always been, into IT, like personally. So, it's always what drew me to it.
This is the challenge we have for these entry-level roles, is that if you look online at people who are trying to train in security, it's a very attractive thing to see online. You could be a cybersecurity expert, work in cybersecurity. It's a very sexy cybersecurity kind of thing. The problem, though, is most of the jobs in IT security are higher level positions. They're jobs that you would get once you understood the operations of operating systems, you understood how networks operate, probably even at an expert level. And then after having compiled this knowledge base of information for yourself, you are qualified to now work in IT security. That is the most common path, is to have all of this knowledge. So if it sounds like that's not entry level, then that's because it's not entry level by any means to be able to have a security job. However, there are entry level security jobs out there. There's just not a lot of them. So if you happen to work in a geography that's relatively big, you're in a large area that has many companies, and it's a big city, then you probably have an opportunity to get in at a security operations center, an SOC, a SOC. The SOC jobs often are, you can think of them as help desk for security. It's kind of where they would fit in those entry level, but it's in security. So if you have a direction where eventually you want to move into that security role, that particular job's a pretty good one to start in. I would say most people, though, that are in IT security today moved up through the ranks learning the other parts of IT. They started with help desk. They moved into operating systems. They learned a lot about Windows. They learned a lot about Linux or Mac OS. They became an expert in networking, because I will tell you that IT security is nothing if not constant network knowledge. So you become practically an expert in these switching and routing technologies. And then finally, once you have that knowledge, they've moved into maybe a security analyst, a security engineering role, where they can work with firewalls and intrusion prevention and SIEMs and VPNs and encryption technologies and certificates and all of those other pieces. But you don't often get to that level until you've kind of moved up through the ranks. So I would say if your focus and you want to get into security, finding that SOC position or something similar entry level is important, but don't let it be the only thing you focus on. The one thing I've learned about IT is that there are opportunities everywhere doing everything. And throughout my career, I have been a field service technician. I have been a corporate help desk person. I have been in sort of a level 2 engineering planning position with operating systems. I've been a network operating system administrator. I've been a network administrator. I've worked in IT security. There's been a mixture of things. So the last job I had was a fantastic IT security role, but I would have never gotten there if I didn't have all of those other jobs through the years. So don't worry or focus too much on immediately jumping into the security pool, because I guarantee you there's lots of ways to work yourself into security, regardless of what your first IT job is going to be. You should focus on getting fundamentals. It's blocking and tackling. It's dribbling the ball. It's learning the basics, understanding how everything works under the surface, continuing your education, continuing to learn about operating systems and networks to finally get to the point where security would be a viable option for you. What's nice about this is, unlike other industries, that can happen in a relatively short period of time. You can move up through the ranks in a number of years and have that particular role. So this isn't, we're not talking about a lifetime of work. We're talking about focusing, being a sponge, learning everything you can, and then moving up as you learn those particular pieces that are going to allow you to have more flexibility with the jobs that you have. You just have to find the right path for you, and everybody has a different path.
It's funny you say that, because the way I jumped into IT was someone had contacted me from a cyber learning school, and they told me, yeah, cybersecurity is where it's at. It's where you want to be, onward and onward. And I was in the Marine Corps, so I'm like a very skeptical person when it comes to hopes and dreams. So I had done some side research, and then I actually came across one of your videos. That's how I got introduced to you, talking about, where you want to first start is a help desk. And, I've taken that advice to heart, and, I've been actually applying to several help desk positions this past week since I got my cert. I just thought, if I had met somebody while I was working who works for the government, and he's in cybersecurity, and he said, if you're going down that route anyways, and you're pretty good at the common fundamentals or the core fundamentals of like A+ and stuff like that, he said just jump straight into Security Plus, because typically if you have the ability to grasp that much knowledge, then you should have no problem grasping the basics at a help desk. And that's why I went for Security Plus first.
And what you'll find even in the federal government of the United States, federal government and partners of the federal government, especially on the DoD side, but not necessarily, love Security Plus. It's in all of their all of these job postings is Security Plus, Security Plus, Security Plus. So it's sometimes specific to the vertical market. Sometimes it's specific to your geography. And I would agree with the advice you got, that if you've got fundamentals already, you understand the operating systems, you understand the network, it's a lot easier to move you into an entry-level security position from there. And if you already know somebody who works in that particular field, boy, make sure you keep track of them. Make sure you always know what's going on and have your ear to the ground, because that's a valuable friend who can help guide you into a particular role. And if they don't have one where they are, trust me, people who work in IT security know all of the other IT security people in their area. You almost have to, because when something hits you, it's hitting everybody else in your area too. So being able to people network on the security side is a valuable skill. And make sure your LinkedIn is up to date and has all these people on it.
Sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much, Professor Messer. I'm definitely going to continue to use you as a resource, if you don't mind. But yeah, other than that, thanks again, and everybody else that's listening. It's going to be a rough road getting your certification, but once you get it, when you see that screen pop up saying you passed, it's going to be the best feeling.
Absolutely.
Other than that, thank you again, and have a good day. Okay.
Appreciate your service. Thanks so much for the call, and best of luck. That's one where having and bringing in all of these resources and taking advantage of them becomes so important. It's never just one thing. I see people all the time come to my site and they say, well, I've got my cert, so where's my job? And I have to tell them, well, that's part of it. You've got a piece of what you need, but very similar to almost any other market, except maybe something like maybe in medicine, for example. You can't be a nurse unless you pass your boards. You can't be a lawyer unless you pass the bar. But IT's not like that. It's not one of those situations. You can get a job without a cert, but it sure helps a lot. So you've got options, and you need to combine these things together and really find the right combination for you to get in the door. And then once you get in the door, now you keep moving up. You never stop You shouldn't be in that help desk position for very long. Back to the phone calls. Thank you for holding for so long. 36 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Dan Pendleton from Port Orchard, Washington, sir.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for holding for 44 minutes. I appreciate it. What can we do for you?
Nothing much, sir. I mean, I'm just here to, just say thank you for all of your information that you've been, passing out for us all these years. And I did have a few questions here and there, but they're kind of more like general when it comes to IT.
Okay.
But I thought I should ask anyway. One of the questions I've always kind of thought about asking you was something my IT teachers over the years have always told me, but I kind of thought it was more of an exaggeration. But they say when it comes to, being in the job market, competing against other certified IT techs, purely with certs, not degrees, they always say it's always better to have more than your competition because that keeps your leg up on them and more likely chance you'll get hired. Is it better to be like that, or is it better to be more like sticking with what you know, preferably?
This is sort of a challenge when you start getting into the field, because you initially think, if I can just have all of these certification abbreviations after my name, certainly I am unbeatable when it comes to getting a job. I will have more of those certifications next to my name than anyone else. Therefore, I must be more qualified. But the reality is hiring managers are trying to find exactly the right fit for that particular job. For example, if you're not in the industry, it's your first time out in IT, you're looking for a job for a corporate help desk or service desk or field service technician or something similar, that entry-level position into the field, you don't necessarily want to show up with a Cisco CCNA certification under your belt, because that shows that you're very knowledgeable in routing, in switching, in configuring switches, in configuring routers. You understand spanning tree. You know how to set up dynamic routing protocols. You've done network designs. You know things at the packet level. That's a pretty high level, or a higher level set of knowledge than someone who's at entry level. And the last thing an employer wants to do is spend the money to bring you on board, train you, get you up to speed, and then you're in a job where you are so bored that you're just going to bail in a month. So all of that investment they've made into time, into resources, and money is now gone out the window because they didn't choose the right person. And if you show up for an entry-level job with 10 certifications under your belt, sometimes that's an enormous negative. You come across as being overqualified. It's a real thing. You do not want to seem that way. I mentioned in a video I did, which is 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. And then I did another 5 more reasons. And I don't remember which one it's in, but I talk about sometimes I talk about customizing your resume for the job you're applying for. So if it's a company that says we need this focus on Microsoft, or we have a focus on networking, or we have a focus on cloud, you should put those topics that you know at the top of the list, saying, oh, I know cloud. Oh, I know networking. I know whatever it is you want. I know that. You're that starving actor trying to get that role. Do you know how to do any horseback riding? Absolutely. You've never been on a horse in your life, but yes, I'm horseback riding. In this particular case, though, you take the things you really do know and you put them up at the top of the list. And in some cases, remove things from your resume that are not a perfect fit. So maybe you did earn your CCNA. Maybe you spent the time and you got that cert. It's a higher level cert. You spent a lot of time putting together the switch configurations and the router configurations, and you spent time in Packet Tracer, and you bought some systems and you put them together. You earned that Cisco cert. You might want to consider not even mentioning that if you're applying for an entry-level position, unless they bring it up. If they say very clearly, it'd be great in this position if you had a CCNA, because it's maybe it's a NOC position, Network Operations Center, and everything you're going to be doing is on the network. If you had some knowledge of networking, that would really be great. Oh, I'm glad you asked. I have my CCNA. That makes sense. But if you're in an entry-level position in a corporate network, it's relatively generic. It's about changing people's passwords and making sure they have access to the VPN. Maybe you don't bring that up right away. Maybe you try to feel that one out to see what makes sense. So eventually in your career, you will accumulate tons of different certifications. Not all of them will be on your resume at any particular time. If I have my A+ and Network Plus, but if I was applying for a job now, I probably wouldn't put those on my resume because people might stand and go, A+? We're really trying to get a senior systems engineer that's designing security systems for, high-end corporate environments. And that doesn't really speak to that. It doesn't show that that's a knowledge that I have by sticking the A+ in there. So it can be a negative in the other direction as well by sort of bringing you down when really you should be looking better than you already look. Every job opportunity should be customized. Every resume that you send out for a job should be customized. And in my videos, I show you how to do that very easily so that the person reading your resume really sees the important part at the top. Because as I have found in my career, they look at the top half of the resume and then that's it. If there's anything else in the resume, they just don't see it. They don't even spend the time. They've just walked in the room. They didn't even know they were talking to somebody on an interview until 5 minutes ago. So certainly they've not looked at your resume. You have to guide them through your resume. You're the one that has to tell the story. So don't rely on them to be fully aware of your skills. You're the one that has to explain it to them. So you should absolutely make sure it's specific to what they're asking for. Do your work beforehand, and you'll do much better when you finally get in the room with the resume.
All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, sir. That's a lot of good points. Honestly, I've been thinking about that question ever since they've told me their kind of stories. They're going like, oh, yeah, back in the day, it's always more important to have more certs than the other guy. Even minor certs like Microsoft and IC3 could help you in that point. Going like, yeah, you could win by a nose and just get the job by that point, but I don't even think really the IC3 and Microsoft certs are that important, honestly.
It's one of those situations where nobody's sitting down and writing out, we talked to these 5 people. Person number 1 had 3 certs. Person number 4 had 7. Person number 4 had 6. Oh, 7 just nosed them out. That's who we're hiring. Never works that way. Sometimes you hire people that have no certifications because there's so many other things. There's communication. There's an eagerness to work. There is a personality that fits best with the organization. There is a corporate culture that's looking for a certain kind of person. Things that you don't have any control over. And you don't have to worry about having control over it. Your goal is just to put the best face forward and figure out the rest. Nobody's counting certs. They're really looking for core knowledge. And maybe if you have the right 2 or 3 certifications that fit better for that job versus somebody else who has 2 or 3 other kinds of certifications, then it goes in your way. It's not about numbers. It's more about knowledge.
All right. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Before I let you go, I guess I'll ask you one other question real quick. I've been doing some personal research here and there about modifying a Vista laptop. It's an old family laptop. I've been thinking about, replacing the operating system with Chromium. Is there any tips and advice about how I should do that or how I should go?
That's an interesting choice. The first, replacing Vista sounds just good to everybody. I think that's good for you. Good. Although, to be fair, Windows Vista there near the end finally got pretty solid. So it's not like if you got the latest version running that Vista, you're fine. The problem you probably would run into when you're dealing with a machine that's that old that was running Vista is having drivers for video, for audio, for networking that are old enough to be able to run the hardware in that system. And whether that's Chromium or Linux or just a newer version of Windows, that will probably be your biggest challenge. Well, worst case, get a good backup, make an image of the system, load it up and see what happens. This is one where it's almost hard to predict because you're using hardware that has been out for a while. So being able to have drivers to support it may be a bit of a challenge, but maybe you might be able to work around it. I had a system that was a Vista system. I upgraded it to Windows 7. It was a Dell machine, but Dell did not make drivers for Windows 7 for that system. But it was a laptop, so it's very proprietary to Dell. But I ended up finding an audio driver directly from the audio driver manufacturer that at least worked, but I had to modify one of the INF files to get it to install, to make it think that it's running on a non-Dell machine. I found a network driver that finally got the wireless working. So I kind of had to work around some of those driver issues. You'll probably run into a similar thing yourself.
All right. Thank you for the advice, sir. I'll be sure to keep that in mind when I go ahead and do more research on this subject.
Well, if nothing else, it'll be an interesting story during that interview where they say, tell us about a challenge you had. Oh, let me tell you about this Vista machine. And then you can talk for 15 minutes.
Oh, gotcha. So that would be kind of a good point to put on the resume then.
Be great. Like, oh, I did an upgrade. Or at the very least, it's a talking point during the interview where they talk about your A+ certification or your Windows certification or your Microsoft certification. And you could say, oh, let me tell you the first time I was able to use that certification, it was when I did this. Because they understand upgrading operating systems. They understand problems with drivers. They understand how much everybody hates HP printer drivers and Microsoft printer drivers and this driver and that. They got it. Like you're talking a pain that they understand. And that's what you're looking for, is to find that connection where both of you been there. It's been a painful situation, but how did you fix it? Well, just dive right in and tell the story. And then they'll be able to determine from there whether that's useful or not. But I think that's a great story.
All right. Okay. I know I did say I was like way over and saying that I only had only a small handful of questions, but I did have another one that just popped up about resumes themselves. But I did previously have an internship at a hospital at a Columbia Memorial down in Astoria, Oregon.
Okay.
And I was one of their IT techs, and most of my job was re-imaging these Windows 7s to Windows 10. And that was like replacing the whole entire hospital's network, all of that, save the image, make sure it works fine, make sure the Windows 10 works properly, educate the user if they don't know how. And I've had a similar job like this when I was in the Army briefly. It was like updating to, I think it was maybe XP to Windows 7, or maybe it was Vista to 7. I was upgrading everything, teaching people how to use it. But would that be something worthy and worth bringing up when it comes to interviews or doing, my resume updates?
You think about that, it's just a bullet. Well, I supported the upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Oh, ho-hum, that is about as boring as it gets. What you want is the horror story while you were doing it. We're all interested in the fact that you did the upgrade first. That's very good. We have to go through this every few years, having a knowledge. And if you can talk about how you customized the setup INF information, or you automated the sysprep process, or you created a WIM that was specific and you updated drivers in the WIM. If you can tell that story of the knowledge that's sort of the inside baseball of the upgrade process, that's good. But if you also hit a point where, and let me tell you about the horror story with this one system. Because if you're in a hospital, there's all these proprietary pieces of hardware. There's outdated pieces of equipment that you have to support. There's machines you can touch. There's machines you can't touch. There's interesting authentication mechanisms. There's tons of things there. It's never going to be 100% of the time this goes well. There's always going to be a time when something doesn't work the way you would expect. And that's what you want to do, is have the crazy horror story that you were able to resolve the problem and save the day because of the knowledge you had about this operating system, this scripting process, or this upgrade, whatever you're doing. That's all very good information to bring up. Don't ever make it just a bullet. Make it about a story behind the bullet.
Okay, gotcha. I see. All right. I'll be sure to put that down then. Thank you for all the information, sir, and I'll go ahead and let you get back to the rest of your stream.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the call. Best of luck.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. I think those skills that we often just overlook. Yeah, upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10. What's the big deal? Well, that is a big deal, isn't it? Especially in a large environment with hundreds or thousands of users and problems that can constantly occur. During an interview, we want to hear about things that went wrong and how you fix them. First, it's interesting, so it makes the interview process go a little better. Plus, it speaks to your ability to do the troubleshooting, and I think that's valuable to be able to do that. Back to the phone lines. Let's go to Atlanta. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hi, this is Des. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. I'm a little nervous, so please bear with me. First of all, I want to thank you, Professor Messer. You have no idea who I am, or I'm just a regular person, but I retired from the military in 2014 after 30 years of military service. Bottom line is that the military had a wonderful program called the Wounded Warriors program, and one of the programs encompassed enrolling into the CompTIA. Being that I was 60, that's 60 years old at that time, I was really apprehensive about enrolling into the program. And then I discovered you, Professor Messer, in your courses, in your exams, in your live sessions. And so bottom line is I became a lot more confident in the program. I went through the program 2015 for 1 year. I took my exam for the CompTIA 802-220.
All right.
So I'm dating myself. I failed the first go-around. I finally got myself together, mental encouragement through your shows. Again, I was able to just crunch study for the exam because it had to do with comprehension. It has to do with really reading the questions, etc.
Right.
My point is to the other callers who have called in, the A+ certification is a really good certification to have in your pocket because that opens up doors to greater things. After I completed my certification, I actually started my own small business as a women's veterans owner in repairing computers. Just a little thing.
Nice.
Then I went to volunteering at churches where some folks didn't have the technology needed to just, as one of your test questions was, there was a printer error. What do you do first? So I want to say again to the other callers, hang in there, trust your gut, study the exams, and by all means, keep listening to yourself. Also, Professor Messer, you look way younger now than you did in 2015. So what's the secret with that?
I'm not quite sure. I'm going to go with good genes and lots of makeup, and I just smear Vaseline over the lens, and we're fine. Either way,
Fantastic.
I'll take it, and maybe we'll just keep that party going. If that works out that way, I'm fine with it. But it sounds to me like the story, the progression that you made through the years is remarkable. I always tell people, and I'm more important for me now than ever, is that the computer doesn't know what age you are. So that's the key, is to keep doing what you're doing. If you're able to make that system dance, if you're able to solve the problems that are there, often it's not as much a technological challenge as it is a problem-solving challenge. You're putting a puzzle together or taking one apart. And I think the better you are with puzzles, very often the better you are in IT, interestingly enough.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor. Keep doing the great work.
I appreciate your call. Thank you for your service, and best of luck to you too, Deb.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's one of those, I think, that we often don't think about. It doesn't really apply to me. We have a sort of a saying in IT about that. It's sort of the gray hair factor. Like the more you've sort of done through the years, the weirder things that you find, you sort of store that in your brain. So the more opportunities you have to run across the really unusual situations kind of builds this database in your own troubleshooting processes, and you can kind of jump around sometimes because of the thing that you learned 20 years ago. I mean, when I first started learning TCP/IP was when it really started being more widely deployed in the enterprise. There was a time we had Windows. Windows didn't support IP. It would run IPX, so it would connect to Novell NetWare systems, but it wasn't even built into the operating system. We had to load a third-party driver, the Trumpet WinSock. Literally, that was the name of it. We had to load the Trumpet WinSock just to have Windows work with IP on our networks. So that's the part where, okay, I can start to kind of learn this technology from the ground up. We've sort of now come full circle with where we started these conversations today, is that if you can find that wave at the beginning and get on board the wave, then you can be sort of the expert in those pieces. Becomes challenged. No, it wasn't NetBIOS. It was IPX and SPX, although we did plenty of NetBIOS too, because I was on a token ring network in our enterprise. So plenty of token ring bridging with NetBIOS and NetBUI. How about that one? Hit you with those. Back to the phones. It's old school time. 678 area code. Hi, caller. Which name were you calling from?
Hey, Professor Messer. This is Malora Hill in Georgia.
Thanks for
I
calling.
want to say thank you for all you've done over the years. I actually got my A+ and Network Plus through watching your videos back in the day.
Congratulations.
So my question is this. I kind of like a lot of you callers that are trying to transition, getting into IT. I luckily got in about 5 years ago. I've been there, but been kind of stuck in this field support role. So I want to know, is there like is it hard for guys that are in field support to kind of transition in? Because I talk to a lot of recruiters, and honestly, a lot of times they don't seem to understand what we do. It's kind of hard to kind of clarify. Because I work for a big grocery retailer, Publix.
Okay.
And so, we do everything. We're kind of jack of all trades. But anyway, a lot of recruiters I've seen with other positions trying to get into, it's kind of hard to try to explain to them or even open those doors to get into them. So have you seen any issues with it being hard to transition from field support into other IT roles? More like in-house, So that's really, I think, where I will excel once I can kind of get closer to opportunities.
I think it will, in many ways, it depends on the type of field service that you're doing. So, of course, with large organizations, there tends to be a lot of stores are exactly the same by design. So if you go to one Publix, the configuration of the technology is similar to the next Publix down the line, is similar to the next. In some cases, down to the IP addressing is similar from place to place, so that it's all the same, it's all similar. I worked with a number of large retailers that was that way, and it just makes sense. You have hundreds, if not thousands, of stores you have to manage, so of course we want it to be exactly the same. The problem you run into, at least from a field service perspective, is that you learn the technology that the store has, but that's it. And it's so homogeneous for every single store. It's exactly the same for every single store. Then you never go outside the scope of that. So it becomes difficult to go to another employer and say, I have this broad knowledge, when in reality, you know exactly what's at that store and that's it. You don't ever go outside the scope of what's, and it's also hard to learn that way, because if you want to extend and learn more about operating systems, more about the network, more about the security, you really can't do that because you have a very narrow role. Your job is to be eyes on site and effectively follow the list of things they're telling you to do, whether you know what you're doing or not. Field service can be a challenge in those particular environments, although you got chicken tender subs. So there's an upside, of course, to all of this. What I would recommend is when you're in those types of roles, you're like, I want to move to the next level. I want to move into operating systems. I want to move into corporate positions. I want to move into a networking role. Now's the time to start networking. When I was in field service, I supported tons of companies and governmental agencies in a particular county or set of counties in Florida. And I got to meet so many people. And what you want to do is when you meet those people, you start adding them to your LinkedIn. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to the role that you're in because yours is more of a corporate role going to those corporate environments, but you'll occasionally meet with people that are outside the scope. Maybe this is also your opportunity to start getting more involved with your local user groups. Go to the Microsoft user group, the Cisco user group, meet the people who are there, meet the people that are in these other companies in your particular area so that you can introduce yourself, become known to them, look for jobs that are opening in their area, send them a note saying, hey, I'm in the Microsoft user group with you. I saw this opening in your company. Do you know more about this job? What can you recommend that I provide? Do you want to send my resume through so that you get a finder's fee in the employee program that you have internally? Those are things that can also help you move up and move out of those particular roles. At that point, you've got the knowledge, you've got the foundational pieces you need to be able to do those jobs. You just need to find the right people and the right jobs to go with them. So it may be as much you going through and looking at LinkedIn jobs, dice.com, the monster.coms of the world. That's part of it. But the other part is maybe do as much person networking as you can. And obviously, in your case, that person networking will be outside the scope of your normal day. But see if you can start getting more involved in some of your local groups, even if they start and keep doing things online. We're starting to get into the mode of doing that. So before we all get back into an actual room and can do a user group meeting in person, start meeting those people any way you can, add them to your LinkedIn, make sure they know what you know, and then start looking for those jobs. It's as I mentioned before, it's very much blocking and tackling. It's fundamental. Just make sure that when you finally get into a position where you can apply yourself to those roles and they want to have an interview, make sure you have the stories. Now, I bet in your environment, going from place to place and handling these crazy problems, I'm sure you've got crazy and interesting stories to talk about. That's where you would bring your current knowledge into the something that could be valuable for getting that next job.
Yeah, because it seems like, I've had quite a many interviews, and it just seems as though, like you said, it's almost like I'm stuck because it's like, well, yeah, you're in IT, but it's almost like they look at us like we're in maintenance or like, right, like I'm a maintenance guy or something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm like, but I do IT. I have a laptop. I have parts. But anyway, but the groups you mentioned, how would I find those particular groups and things of that nature? Because I'm on LinkedIn. I got all, the social media and things of that nature as far as that goes. But where do you find some of these groups at? Is it on LinkedIn or?
I think LinkedIn is a great place to find them, but they advertise in a lot of different ways. I think it's better to kind of reverse the search and just go to Google and look for Microsoft user group and maybe your particular area. Okay. Look for Cisco user group, your particular area, Linux user group. You might also want to try meetup.com, which sounds like a bad site, but it isn't. Meetup.com is one that has local groups. Will put, here's what we're doing and when we're doing it. And it's a yoga group. It's a flower group. It's an IT group. WordPress, programming, Cisco, Microsoft, they're out there too. So look everywhere you can. These user groups aren't always very good at promotion and marketing. So you sometimes have to use the Google machine to kind of hunt them down. But they should be relatively available in your particular geography. Just find the one that's local to you and make sure you attend that next meeting.
Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate your help and your advice on that. And like I said, because you saved me a lot of time because I was actually looking at doing the CCNA and because of what you said earlier about search don't just win you opportunities. So that definitely saved me some time there.
It certainly could. If you find someone who says, we won't hire you unless you have that, then obviously that's different. But you do have to be very careful about those.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think it's, the thing about it is now trying to get that stigma off of me and get into more of a in-house role and more opportunities. Because like you said, we touch kids and bits of different systems, but we're not exactly into them fully.
Yeah, you've got the foundation. There's probably a managed service provider or a value-added reseller in your area that handles other customers like this. They would love to have your knowledge in-house. You just have to find them.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck. That's one of those, I think, that if you are in one of those jobs and you're trying to move up, we're always trying to level up in IT, but you have to spend time kind of learning that knowledge. At some point, you're going to learn everything you need to learn to level up, and you need to recognize when that occurs. But then you have to already know, where do I go from here? What are my options? And at the entry level, you sort of have a base knowledge to go with. You have to understand, do I go to a local managed service provider? Is there a value-added reseller? Is there a local enterprise or corporate environment? Is government a better use of this? Where do I use this knowledge? And you sometimes have to do a little bit more sort of research to understand that, because you have no idea until you reach out to those companies to see if this even applies. And that's why more research and knowing people in that scenario, much more valuable to you, because they'll tell you if you need to know that or not. It's a good place to go. Let's go back to the phone lines. The 727 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there in Tampa? Are you there in Florida? It's the Florida call. Am I on mute? I've been holding for so long. I'm not going to drop this call.
Are you hearing me?
There you are.
Are you hearing me, Professor?
I can hear you.
Sorry about that.
No
Good
worries.
Afternoon. Yes. First time caller. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
I know you have heard this. You're welcome. I know you have heard this multiple times, but I don't think you really realize how much you are doing for us out here. But I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. I thank you for doing the work for us. And I know you're humble, and you always say that you're not the one doing the work. We are the one who has to go out there and pass it. But just want you to know that you're giving us the strength and the confidence to go out there to pass it. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Well, I'm presently studying for my the Core 1, and I'm just a couple of weeks in, but I've been watching your videos and trying to get on the Q&As. But I noticed that on your site you listed 4 books, and I looked at them. I scanned through the summary, and I saw another one on the CompTIA website, and I was just wondering, do you know about that one? And if you do, why is it that you didn't recommend that one? Because I was actually thinking about buying it. It's a bit expensive. It's over $100, but the thought crossed my mind, and I was just wondering why you didn't recommend it.
It's interesting you would mention it, because over the last few years, this is a relatively new thing, that CompTIA has really worked hard at building their own study materials. Years ago, they weren't in that market at all. They didn't have any study materials that they offered. They relied on third parties to be able to create the books and training materials and labs and practice tests and all the other things. And they didn't have a lot of options available. But over the last couple of years, they've made some acquisitions. They have they've hired people in-house, and they've started building out their own suite of study materials. And it was a little bit of a rocky start, I think is fair to say, but they really have worked themselves now into a nice grouping of study materials. I will say that if you go back to my videos, 5 years ago or so, I was very keen. I was very much partnered with a company called GTS Learning that created some fantastic books. Their textbooks were what I thought were fantastic. It's some of the best you would find. And so I would recommend to people, if you're going to watch my videos, get these books. In fact, I worked at a partnership with them so close that I would use their books to help create my videos. And then once I created my videos, they stuck QR codes to my videos in their books. So they were nice people to work with and extremely knowledgeable. Well, they were bought by CompTIA. So the books that you see written by CompTIA are written by people that I know from back in the GTS Learning side. So it's great material. And up to this point, I had not included that in the list of things that I would recommend to people. mainly because the selling of those was just totally done by CompTIA. But CompTIA says now, well, if you're a partner of ours, you can offer those books to your students. So I was even considering adding those to the list of, because I think they're exceptional books. But as you mentioned, they're not exactly in everybody's budget. But I think everybody needs a mix of things. I think if it's a quality book and I can say, here's quality, this one costs a little money. And if you got the money, that's a quality book. Or maybe you can look at some of these others that maybe not as expensive, but are still very good. I think it'd be worth adding that to the mix. So it's interesting you'd bring it up because I've been talking with Mrs. Professor Messer about, do we really want to bring those on and put it on the website? I don't want to give people the wrong impression, but I already know the people who write the books, and I like those people and I like what they do. I just got, in fact, the Security Plus books from CompTIA, and I've been reading through that one to see, is this something I think would be valuable to people? Because I'm not going to put it on my site unless I've read through it, unless I really like it, and it fits the quality of what I want to offer. I haven't done that yet with A+, but I would bet, knowing who wrote it and knowing its legacy, I would bet it's a very good book too. I really need to go back to my connection at CompTIA and have them send me a copy of that too, just so I can try it myself. Because it's if it has that same quality as the GTS Learning Days and they've just updated it for the latest exam, that's probably a pretty good buy.
Right. Well, that's good. Well, I'll be watching the website to see if you included, because right now I'm trying to focus on the videos because I just watched 10 videos so far. So I'm trying to exhaust the videos first. Right now, I'm not even trying to retain anything. I'm just trying to just watch all the videos, just get my mind going. Then I go back and watch all of them again, and then I'll pause and try to learn something then. But the way I learn best is just to, like, if I'm reading a book, I'll just read through first, and then I go back again, and then I try to retain. And I find that I learn better that way. So I'm not really ready for the book yet. I'm going through your material first, and then when I feel comfortable with that, then I go through the book. But if you have the CompTIA book on your website, I'll definitely buy it.
I appreciate that input.
Oh, definitely. And I have enough material to hold me right now because I just purchased the Core 1 combo with the notes and the practice exam.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I just got them yesterday actually. So I haven't even looked at the practical exam as yet because I'm gonna go through my videos first.
Good.
Then I go through my notes, and then I try to challenge myself with the exams. So the way I'm trying to approach this is like, even though the priority is passing the A+, but I'm trying to learn the material. I'm trying to be competent when I go on the job. So I'm trying to learn everything. I wouldn't feel good going in the exam and pass it. I got a job, and then I know I'm struggling because I didn't really study the way I'm supposed to. So I'm trying to exhaust the material as much as I can.
I have the same philosophy with exams. I hate to go into an exam and just know enough to pass the exam. I want to sort of immerse myself in it so that no matter what's asked of me is useful. And also, before you continue, I think it's great that you understand the best way you study. Not everybody has gotten to this point yet, like where they figured out what is the process that works best for me, because everybody has a different study process. I like to start with the book. Other people like to start with the videos. Other people watch the videos and don't write anything. Other people watch the video and write everything the first time through, and then the second time through but it's whatever fits best for their style. It takes a while to figure out what that is, but I think it's great that you've gotten into a rhythm that works for you, and it's so valuable.
Oh, definitely. And one thing I've done too, and I think what is working for me is that I had actually studied the 901 content because I studied about a year or so before it expired, but I got into the position where I didn't have the money to pay for the exam, so I didn't take the exam. Right. I even bought the 901 notes from you, and I just used it for the 901, But then, of course, I didn't take the exam, and then it expired. But I think then, I don't think I knew how much I wanted it. I don't think I was putting out the effort. Maybe because I didn't really know how important it was to me. But I think what has helped me this time is when I started, the first thing I started with is going through the study group, all the study group tapes. I started all the way back from February 2019, and so far I've watched all the study groups in full up to December 2020. So I just watched the January 2021 study group this morning. So I think what has helped me is that I wasn't really utilizing my time as much as I should. So what I do now is when I'm listening to your study groups, if I'm driving, I skip the first hour, and then I just listen to your discussion and the people who are calling in, and I learn so much from that. Believe me, I stay for the Q&A. I do the Q&A when I know I have time, can focus and answer the questions. And what I do, because I'm going through the tapes, when you display the questions, I don't even wait for the answers to come up. I try to answer the questions even before seeing the answers. And I'm surprised how well I'm doing on the exams. I really feel encouraged. The only questions that have given me problems so far are the ones that are covered under the 20% new content, because I never studied those.
Yep.
Yes. So and even with those, I've been guessing, because I answer all your questions, and I've been guessing some of them, and surprisingly, I've been getting a lot of them correct. But I'm gonna continue, and I think if I don't get it now, I'm not gonna get it again, because right now I'm so pumped. Just listening to your discussions, listening you talk about your past experience and what you experienced in your work life in your 25 years, and just talking about all this stuff. Because I think that what happened to me once is that I was a bit discouraged, because I've been to a few interviews, and even though I don't have any certification, I know the knowledge that I have, and I know the value that I can add to a company. And because I have a bachelor's, I got tired of hearing people saying, theoretically, you're well qualified, but I know I need somebody to jump right in. And because I don't have that IT experience, I haven't been successful in landing a job. I've had quite a few interviews. And during the time when I was unemployed, when I started studying for the 901, what happened is I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
It's one of those situations, though. If you start finding so much of that, then you're missing one of those elements. And it's one of the reasons I tell people it's never a bad time to start building that LinkedIn connections. It's always good to start building the relationships with other people at a professional level. There was a comment in the chat, and I can't argue with what they were saying, is that I hate social media. And to some degree, I can appreciate that. But I put LinkedIn into the category of a professional conversation, a professional relationship builder. And if you use it that way, in fact, if you look at my LinkedIn, people who've taken my classes have said, I want to get on your LinkedIn, but on my LinkedIn is connecting me with people that I have worked with before. So I have a very specific rule about who I connect with, and that allows me to have a much more laser-focused effort on LinkedIn when I want to communicate to other people that I know. It's not going out just to a random group. My intention is not to create as many followers as I can on LinkedIn. My goal is to connect everybody I know or people I have met that I can then continue to connect with through the years.
Right. I guess that's what I have to strengthen, because I'm very weak on the connection side, because I don't know a lot of people in that circle. So I listen to you harp on that so much. So I'm, sort of stretching my mind now as to who do I really know that I can connect with. So yes, I definitely need to strengthen that. But I remember the point I was trying to make now is when I was unemployed for that time and I was studying for the A+, I think what happened is that my resume kept falling through the cracks because I didn't really seek any assistance in doing a great resume. I just did what I thought was good at the time, and based on what I included in my resume, the only thing I can conclude is that I just fell through the cracks, maybe not using the right keywords or something like that. Because there's no way that I could, for 7 months, I was only called by 2 companies. I did close to 100 applications, and I was only called by 2 people. So I think what I'll do this time is I'll seek professional help in making sure that my resume is using the right keywords and all that, because I can't afford for what happened to me in that 7 months of unemployment to happen again. But right now, I'm not so focused on that so much. Just going to try and study the content, get the A+, and then I'll take it from there. And it was just last week that I just thought of a friend, and she was working. She's a former coworker, and she started at a new company. So I just thought about it. I was listening to your show, and you're talking about networking, and I just sent her a text and say, "Hey, does your company have a local IT department? And if so, do you know anyone in authority?" And within 5 minutes, she responded to my text, and she sent me the profile of this network systems administrator. And she said, "I'm very close to this person. As a matter of fact, we're supposed to have a meeting next week." And just like that, I might have a link. So I said to her, I don't really want to do the wrong thing, but so how do you suggest that I get introduced to this person?
Great question.
And she said, "That's it." Yes, and she said, "That's easy. I'm supposed to have a meeting with him on Tuesday. After the meeting, I'll get back in touch with you and I'll let you know." So I'm very hopeful and hoping for the best from that.
That is a great story. You never know where these opportunities are going to come from, and if you can make them yourself, that's even better. Sometimes you don't have the jobs aren't just going to come falling down on top of you. They're not going to come to your front door and knock on the door. You have to go out and get them, and you have to do it strategically. And people are more willing to help you. They know you. They know about your work ethic. They know about how you are with other people. They'll be more interested in encouraging and bringing you on board. People want to help other people. So reach out. What you did was fantastic. Reach out, see if you can get a response. If not, you just keep moving, and then optimize everything else behind the scenes. I think that's a great opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Well, the sky is the limit for me now. I'm very pumped. I'm not gonna stop. Today I joined the study group for the first time, but unfortunately I was on the road, so the connection wasn't stable. So I got kicked off like after 30 minutes. But I'll be joining the next one in September, and I'm going through. I have a very aggressive schedule for the 1001 for 1 month. So I'm planning to take the 1001 next month.
Good.
And then after passing that, because I'm confident that I'm going to pass it, I'm going to spend 3 months, as you suggest, and do the 1002 because I have very little experience on that side. So once I pass the exam in September in the core one, I'm going to start the core 2, and I'm going to use 3 months to cover that, and hopefully I have the same success in the core 2. So I'll be, and also, I wanted to ask you as well. I was thinking of buying the bundle for the core 2, but of course I'm not going to buy it until I finish the core 1. But I was just a bit hesitant. Like you mentioned the tips, the exam tips, and so on. And I was wondering if it's worth doing the bundle, because I've listened to the tips that you have given in terms of the 4 resources that you use for the exam, and I was just wondering if I should just focus on just buying the notes and the practice exam instead of getting the bundle.
Well, that part's completely up to you, and it's depending on the resource you have available. If you have plenty of access to the internet, then having downloadable videos and downloadable audio may not be as important as having things like the course notes and the practice exams, but I break those out so that people can make a decision. If your focus is wanting to get your hands on the Exam Hacks ebook, which is really the only difference that's added in that you can't get with the other things, you may just want to consider getting your voucher from the Professor Messer website, because when you buy a voucher, that comes with the voucher for free. So that may be a way to get your hands on that ebook without having to buy the full package that's available if you don't need the downloadable audio and video.
Okay, got you. That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Sorry I took up so much time for the other callers, but I really appreciate you, and I'll continue to watch your videos, and thanks for the help.
I appreciate your calling. I thank you for the feedback. I think other people in the chat room appreciated some of the things you were going through and things that they might want to work on as well. And please keep us updated with the entire progress of getting that certification. We'd love to hear back how that goes.
Definitely, I will.
Best of luck.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
It's one of those things where we almost forget that so many people are willing to help. And that's one of the things I love about IT is that the number of people that are willing to help you, that you just worked with them, you knew them. Oh yeah, I can connect you with that person. Let me talk to them about that job. Let me see if I can get a conversation going between you two, and then you can take it from there. We do that all the time in this industry. So you should make sure you surround yourself with like-minded people. And I mean, not necessarily in the company you're with, but online as well. And I've talked a couple of times during this study group about LinkedIn and how important it can be. There's so many great stories of people that just because they posted on LinkedIn, they started to get calls from recruiters and hiring managers because they were able to show online that they had a base knowledge in this technology and the things they were doing with it. This is also a great place just to keep up with people. Whenever and in fact, the story about reaching out to somebody and immediately they said, "Oh yeah, I'm meeting with the network person," was a great story. The last position I had working for someone else was that next generation firewall company, where somebody I'd worked with years ago called me from out of the blue and said, "Hey, I just talked with this company that's got an up and coming technology. They want to hire me on the sales side. Are you interested in coming over and being a systems engineer for this?" I wasn't even thinking about that. It wasn't even in my day-to-day of what was going on. But as he explained it to me, I thought, well, this would be great. But it's somebody I worked with years ago. But we had always kept touch. We had kind of sent emails back and forth time to time. He's on my LinkedIn. We knew where each other was in the world. We knew what each other was doing. But he thought this would be a good position for me, which I was so happy about, because when I went to talk with them, it was a great position. And I stayed there 7 years and went from a startup company to a public company. That type of opportunity just fell out of the sky, or did it? It really didn't. It was a relationship that was someone I knew, someone I liked working with, someone I enjoyed working with through the years, who just happened to, wait a second, I know somebody who'd be good for this. That's how it works. But unless you spend the time keeping up with people, getting on their LinkedIn, having that people networking side of thing, it would have never happened. And I don't know, would I be sitting here right now and talking to you if it hadn't? I don't know the answer to that. But I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I would not have changed it for the world. Sometimes that's the way it goes. Those types of situations, you have to put yourself in the place where it could happen. If you don't add yourself to LinkedIn, you don't create that group of people, you don't add it to everyone you work with, then it never will. So that's the difference, is finding the way that works best for you and making that happen. Well, I think we had a pretty good study group today. Hopefully my voice is going already, but I got to save it because tomorrow we're doing this again. That never happens, but we're doing it this time. We did our Core 1 today. Tomorrow we're going to do Core 2. I've got a whole new set of questions, all from the Core 2 exam. Same format. We'll spend an hour doing my Q&A. We'll spend the rest of the time doing your Q&A. And I think both of those will be a lot of fun. I'll have the replay of this up shorter. Probably the YouTube will be available shortly, just a few minutes. And then the audio podcast replay is usually posted later today, early tomorrow. And then show up tomorrow. We'll just do the whole thing all over again. I'll reset the website and we'll do some more Q&A. It's always fun. Thank you for being here. We could not do this without you. And it's one of those where the study group is so much better because of the input you have. If it's something that you enjoyed, you think other people would like it, hit that thumbs up button so that YouTube understands that this might be something other people would be interested in as well. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everybody.